So yeah, really great day today. Yeah, Q-lap was a little bit rough around the edges yet again. I'm just not quite nailing the laps that I can do that would, put us up on the front row a bit more often. But thankfully, with the way that the off track and stuff works with turn one, the track limits there are pretty severe and really hard to get right. So yeah, we got through turn one fairly cleanly in qualifying, and after that it was just a case of take a deep breath and just do the rest of the lap. And yeah, we started on the front row, P2, got a run on Marcel in towards the hairpin, and he left inside open, which I was a little bit surprised about, but the outside on exit can be a little bit stronger than that. So I was quite surprised that when we sort of got back to power, I'd sort of basically cleared him. And then from there, it was just a case of trying to maintain the gap, manage the tyres, just try and keep Marcel at sort of a safe distance, about 0.4, 0.5 back, and just manage the tyres throughout the race, which we managed to do. And yeah, it just feels really good to win another race. Obviously, winning it in Riyadh was great, but although it's only like a knockout race, to still win, it's great points for me, great points for the team, so we can move on to tomorrow with a little boost of confidence.
Our first champion!
Dreams get realised, yet some turn into nightmares. In a world where the past intertwines with the present, a new story begins. The first chapter of the ESL R1 history book has been etched onto the pages of time. Another now has its turn. The ESL R1 2023 full season is on. Find your grip and get ready for the racing to be released.
And it is pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go. And it is pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go.
Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you for joining us so early for this next round, this next instalment of ESL R1, the full season. We're here today for round 3 at Hockenheim for the semi-finals and the finals. I'm your host Rory Alexander, but I'm not alone, thankfully. We've got Lewis McGlade, who's the resident expert, who's going to help us through everything this evening. We've also got Ewan O'Leary up in the booth too. But actually, it's not just us three who's going to be taking you through this evening. We've also got a very special guest, someone who knows their way around a GT3 car. Bruno Spengler of BS Plus Competition has spared us a couple of hours of his time as well and will be joining us throughout the broadcast. Now, Lewis, good evening, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited for another round of ESL R1. It's always very exciting, especially when we come to the Hockenheim qualifying. It's going to be mega. Racing is going to be mega, and I'm glad to be joined by you, Rory. Kick Veracity out. So it's been her birthday recently. We'll talk about that a bit later on. That's why she's not here. Glad to be with you, Rory. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to go one way or the other, Lewis. One way or the other, but that's why you're here, my friend, to make sure everything goes very, very, very smoothly. So we're here, obviously, for the semi-finals and the finals of round 3. But before we even get into that, let's have a quick chat about round 2, because as we all know, or those who watched it know, Max Benecke won the race on track, but that's not the case, is it?
No, there was a little bit of spice afterwards. We can actually take a look at a bit of a replay as to what exactly unfolded back in Spa between Maximilian Benecke and Sebastian Job. The pair of them were racing quite hard, and there was actually a little bit of contact between the two of them. Hopefully, we can take a look in just a second. This is a bit of racing that led up. This was on the last lap, oh, not last lap, about halfway through the race, leading up into Les Combes and Malmedy. There was a little bit of contact between the pair of them going through Malmedy on the exit, and race control took a good look at it. That's at this point here. So Sebastian Job turns in maybe a little bit early. There's contact between the two of them, and it actually means that Benecke runs Sebastian Job off the road. That running off the road was where race control stepped in. They gave a post-race time penalty to Maximilian Benecke and dropped him from 1st down to 8th, giving Sebastian Job his 2nd consecutive final victory. Now, the questions kind of get laid at Benecke's door. Obviously, there's nothing he can do about the penalty now, whether he agrees with it or not, and I can tell you he definitely doesn't. It just means now where what are we going to see from Benecke from now on? How are we going to see him respond from this? What are we going to see? He's a driver who's a champion in this, and champions are made from moments like this where they bounce back immediately. We already saw Rory a little bit yesterday where he was racing a little bit differently. He wasn't racing that hard. He doesn't want to become under the scrutiny of race control for yet another round.
Yeah, I mean, for him, he just needs to take it out of their hands, really. He definitely needs to play the long game. This is a long season that we've got. I mean, we're getting almost near halfway, but it's still a very, very long season. There's plenty of points up for grabs. So, yeah, I think playing the long game and keeping his head down is definitely the play for Max Benecke. But that was last week. Let's move on to this week, because there's some big storylines coming out of the knockout rounds as well. Will Sebastian Job be able to get 3 wins on the spin? The hat trick, I don't think that's ever happened. I think we've had Dara McCormack had 2 wins in a row, never 3. So that'll be interesting to see whether he can do that. And also, speaking of Dara McCormack, can Mr. Consistency continue his run of podiums? He's had a podium at every single race that we've raced in so far. Not just the finals, every single one. But also, there was a few issues for some teams. Whilst 4 teams had all 4 drivers in the finals, well, the semi-finals and the finals, 4 teams have no drivers, one of which are the factory Mercedes team. So that's going to be an interesting storyline. James Baldwin, one of those drivers as well in that team, he almost won the whole thing last season. You know, he's 2 corners away. So it'll be fascinating to hear what he thinks. And funnily enough, we're going to have a chat with him a little bit later on. But speaking of chats, I think we've got Bruno Spengler with us. But actually, well, he's not going to be with us quite yet, but he'll be with us very, very shortly. On that Mercedes piece, Lewis, are you surprised by this? James got off to a slow start last season and he came through to almost win it. What do you think about this? Are you worried for them?
No, I'm not. I'm still not worried, but there are concerns being laid at the door of Mercedes because the car's still fine. You can tell that by the power that obviously Williams have put on, that the Apex Racing team have put on a victory yesterday in Kevin Lewis Jr.'s hands. So the Mercedes is fine, right? That's the important thing. That's actually kind of a good thing for the Mercedes AMG Petronas Esports team. Yes, they've not made the most of it in the first 3 rounds, but that's the difficulty of racing. This is a brutal series with brutal stakes, and unfortunately they've paid the price of that.
God, it'd be interesting to see how they get on in these, well, not in these semi-finals because they're not in it, but for future rounds. But we're now ready for Bruno. Bruno, how are you, my friend? Thank you so much for sparing some time for us. How are you doing?
Hey, mate, I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm at Red Bull Ring here. We're having a race in GT Masters. So busy weekend ahead, but good to see you guys.
Yeah, I can't take my eyes off that car in the background. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So what brings you to ESL R1, Bruno? And what's your kind of interest in it?
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of sim racing. I love sim racing since 2020. I won the IMSA Pro Series championship when IMSA decided to do a championship during the pandemic because I was supposed to race in the real IMSA series. So the championship got delayed. So they created that championship to kind of replace the real life championship until the real life championship would go again. Sorry, you hear all kinds of noises in the background. It's the paddock, so there's a lot of stuff happening. But so I kind of fell in love with sim racing at that time, together with BS Competition, who is the BMW M official team. Now with ESL, I'm the team captain for BS Competition and also BMW Motorsport sim racing ambassador. So that's why I'm here. And as I said, I'm very fascinated by sim racing, and I believe with sim racing, also for real life drivers, it can make you a better driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like a treadmill for a runner, right? Some of these sims, they're so close. Well, I believe they're so close to the real thing that people can actually train on them, which is great. So it's fantastic, that BMW factory is involved in ESL R1. What do you think about ESL R1 in the landscape of sim racing in general? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's shaking everything up? I'd be keen to hear your views on ESL R1.
I think it's awesome. I think ESL is really taking, and Rennsport together are really taking sim racing to the next level. With all the events organized, the on-site events, with all the simulators there, and how professional everything is made, the broadcast, the good drivers, the teams, it's sim racing to a different level. And I think for a first year for Rennsport, it's already amazing what they already achieved in terms of reality. It's very difficult to get a simulation close or like real life. And I think for the first year, for a first shot, it's something that's already very, very good with Rennsport. And also ESL is doing an amazing job organizing the events and having this competition running.
Yeah, it's fantastic for all of us, especially as sim racers looking out, and it's great that you guys who do it for real, being so interested in it is just great. And obviously, speaking of real cars, you've got a real BMW M4 GT3 in the background. It's obviously quite similar to the sim racing vehicle that we've got. Do you have any tips or tricks that you give to the guys doing it in real life?
Yeah, I mean, these guys don't have to take any tips from me because they are incredibly fast. And to reach their level, I have to spend 6 to 7 hours a day in my simulator to maybe reach their level if I can. So I don't think they have anything to take from me. I mean, the only thing maybe is my general experience about how to deal with pressure, how to deal with important moments. This is maybe stuff we can discuss. Definitely, and maybe I can bring something there. But on the technical side of things, there's not much I can bring because these guys are really the top, the elite drivers in the world. So that's why they are doing ESL, because they're top drivers in the world. So I don't think they can take anything from driving wise, any tips from me. But maybe there's other stuff I can bring.
Gosh, I'm sure they'll be very happy to hear you saying they don't need driving tips from you. But unfortunately, obviously, the knockout rounds yesterday didn't go quite to plan. All 4 drivers got eliminated. You weren't the only team, obviously, to do that. But how do you think the guys are feeling right now? Have you spoken to them? Is there anything you can do, around the mental side to kind of pick them up from this?
Yeah, I think so. We have to see that in our case, for example, we are taking also sim racing also slowly to a different level, because now for the first time we have drivers that dedicate 100% to sim racing, which was not the case in the past in BS competition. We had our drivers which are extremely talented and are able to compete at the highest level and still do a job on the side and not use 12 hours of their day to train. And this is the first time now we are implementing this with our drivers now for ESL. And this is a slow process. It takes time to get used to it. It takes time to get everybody to speed. It takes time it's a different approach. So I know the guys are extremely fast, extremely talented, and they will make it. Yesterday was extremely unlucky. I know how hard they train, and I know how good they are. and this just happens. You will see other good guys in the next races having issues. This is so close together that the tiniest mistake or the tiniest issue, you don't maybe not feeling 100% well with the sim. There are some things here and there that are not 100%, and you're 1 or 2 tenths behind and you're already out. And I think that's why I think it's going to happen to some other guys during the season. But we are getting there, we're getting better. And yesterday was extremely, of course, we were a bit disappointed, but in racing, it's part of it. For example, yesterday we've been looking here in Red Bull Ring, we've been struggling a little bit with our setup for the whole day, and now for today, all of a sudden in one session we improved it. It's the same thing, if you don't have your setup 100%, if everything is not 100%, you're just not in front. You have to have everything working perfectly to win races and to battle at the front. Otherwise, it doesn't work, because it's a sport where everything is so close together. Especially sim racing is even more extreme, because people can train every day for hours and know every little bits of the track and of the car. So it's even more difficult. So if one thing doesn't work perfectly, you're just very quickly out. And that's why I'm not 100% disappointed, because I know how hard it is, and I know they will bounce back in the next times they will be there.
Yeah, and speaking of bouncing back, you weren't the only team who struggled. Mercedes-AMG, for the first time, had all 4 of their drivers knocked out in the elimination round yesterday. Quick word about them. How do you think James Baldwin, their sort of flagship driver, dare I say, in that group, will be feeling? And how will sort of the team manager be feeling about this? Is it very much the same case of, being patient, making sure that the luck, or waiting till the luck goes your way? Just a quick word on that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of patience that comes into play, because when you go to an event like this with all the training these guys are doing, they have high expectations, of course, but it's so quick. You're getting, with this knockout system, you're getting out so quick of the races, and if you're not there on top in qualifying, a guy can be super quick, but if he misses this one lap of qualifying, this can destroy his whole weekend. So in the end, this whole weekend is a lot up to what you do in this one lap of qualifying. If you miss the lap of qualifying, you're already on the back foot, and then you go into the crashes, and then you're in the mess, and it's getting complicated. So in the end, you always have to keep in mind how short everything is in ESL. If on this short moment you are there and you make it, you have a huge chance to be in the next rounds. If in this short one lap qualifying you miss it, then you have a big problem. And I think these guys have this in mind. They're professionals, and the next time they will be there, they will bounce back.
Absolutely. Just quickly, obviously the first semi-final is about to start. Actually, you're going to be joining us afterwards, which is fantastic. We look forward to hearing from you a little bit more. Just quickly, give us one name who you think is going to win this round. I'll put you on the spot.
I have to be very honest. The last race, like earlier, I haven't followed, so because I was busy in a meeting. I just finished my meeting and racing, and I was at the free practice earlier. So you have to tell me who is the top 5 of this semi-final, and then I can tell you a name.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can have my pick. My pick
Perfect.
is going to be Sebastian Job. So you can have my pick, Bruno, on that. But thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you shortly. It's time to bring in Lewis and Ewan, actually. Guys, semi-final number 1 is about to start. Quickly, give us your your semi-final predictions, actually, guys. Let's go with that.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm going to go for Darren McCormack for this one. I know Lewis is going to be unhappy about that, because he wanted Darren as well. But I'm going to go for it because I think he's got a great chance of winning around here. He's done so on many occasions at ESL R1 in the past, of course. And I think Hockenheim suits him and that Mercedes very, very well indeed. What about you, Lewis?
I'm going to go with Luke Bennett. I'm going to spice it up. It's different than what I picked earlier when we were doing a little rehearsal of this. But no, I'm going with Luke Bennett. I'm going for it.
Well, they're all great picks, to be honest. It's hard to choose anyone in particular. This is the circuit that we are using here today. For round 3 of ESL R1's fall season, it's the Hockenheim Ring, of course, in its modern form, with the extremely difficult turn 1 in terms of staying within the track limits, something that a few fell afoul of in the qualifying of the knockout stages last night, and we'll be hoping for a few good sector times over the course of the day as well. But but yeah, we're very much looking forward to semi-final number 1. We've got some strong drivers in this one as well. We haven't got Sebastian Joe, of course, who's leading the point standings, but of those who are inside the top 10 and not leading, we've got many of them in this first semi-final.
Yeah, let's take a look at the lineup again, so we can touch on a couple of things and really look at where we are in the points. As I say, Dara McCormack is second in the points. You can see there where it says ranking on the furthest right side. That's their position in the point standing. So you can see 6 of the drivers are inside the top 10 in the points. Also, I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to Erhan Yoski and a big congratulations. We'll see if he goes well today. Now racing for the first time in ESL R1 as a married man, which I didn't believe yesterday when Enzo Fazzi burst into my stream chat and said that Erhan got married. I was like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He did. He definitely did. So congratulations to Erhan.
Yes, and hopefully he can go well today. As a result, I don't know if it'll affect him at all, but hopefully he can go well anyway. Yeah, qualifying will be starting up soon. We'll have the usual format, everyone going out one by one. It will be very exciting, and we're very much looking forward to it. By the way, only one of the drivers in the top 10 in the points at the start of the knockouts yesterday didn't make it. That was Johan Hart, unfortunately, for Apex Racing Team, who unfortunately didn't quite make it on that occasion. However, Apex Racing Team do have 2 representatives here. Jamie Fluke is the first of them, and we're on board with the Mercedes. Apex Racing Team have been arguably the strongest Mercedes team so far, and for the newest Mercedes team, that is quite an achievement.
Yeah, the 20.3 there in the first sector. If I recall correctly, the Mercedes is generally a little bit weaker in the first sector. It's more BMW and Audi, particularly. The BMW can do really well in sector 1, mostly courtesy of how it takes that curb at T1. Distinctly remember Yoli Tormula consistently setting the fastest first sector of anyone in the ESL R1. Obviously, we'll see what Sebastian Joe can do a bit later on. Nice and tidy through the hairpin here from Jamie Fluke, now towards the Mercedes Arena section. It's a clean lap. There's not too much to deal with up until this point, and now you've got a lot to deal with, Ewan.
Yes, it gets all of a sudden very technical, very difficult, very quickly. Out goes the curve there, out goes it wide. Turn 10 for Jamie Fluke, and now we'll go into the Mobile 1 curve. A really fast sort of right-hander where you right on the limit, right getting up towards the gravel on the left-hand side as well. Now in towards the banking of the sack curve. This is turn 12, keeping it tight to the inside and then letting it run out, but using the speed on the way through this flat-out chicane at 13 and 14. Then this sort of long looping double apex corner, I guess you could call it. They're out through the final turn now, turn 16, and Jamie Fluke will be setting the benchmark for us here this evening. It's a 1:36.1 from him, and we'll see where that puts him in relation to the others, see if we can get below that 1:36 mark, and I imagine that we will do in this session.
Yeah, but not from Marcel Cinci. You can see the red check next to his name as well on the timer on the left-hand side, where you can see on the timesheets where he says second, Marcel Cinci in that red box on the right side. He's had a slowdown penalty on this lap. It was at T1. You can tell that by his first sector at 22.1. If he's starting from the back of the field, which is exactly where he's going to be, he might not be progressing through into the final. That's your spring season champion. Here comes Dara McCormack, though, and he's had a slowdown as well.
Well,
oh no, sorry, it's Marcel. That's still Marcel's. It's still Marcel's. Don't worry.
Sorry. You're right. Yes. Ooh. Sorry. Yeah, you fooled me as well. To be fair. Yeah, Dara McCormack seems to be going all right for the moment, but we don't have his sector times just for now. By the way, I said arguably Apex Racing Team the best Mercedes so far. I think Williams would have something to say about that. They're second in the team standings at the moment, and Dara McCormack is a big part of that. He makes his way over the line. He's only 100th back. This is a little bit slower than some of the sessions we saw yesterday. I've got to say, there were one in particular. I think it was the last knockout. It was extremely close between everybody, but a little bit faster than what we've seen so far in this first semi-final.
Knockout 4 was extremely close, but it wasn't particularly fast. That was the thing. We didn't see a 35.9 in that session. That's where we expect the pole time to come from. We haven't seen that from Dara McCormack, who has struggled with piecing it together in qualifying. Same as the likes of Joshua Rogers as well when it comes to those finals. See what Maximilian Benneker could do, though. Gamers 8 Drivers Champion across the line, looking to go to the top, and certainly does so with a 36.037. Solid lap time, but I'm not convinced that is pole.
No, I'm not convinced either. I don't think Max is, to be honest. The way he was shaking his head there, and he almost looked bemused as to how that was even pole in the first place, considering the 3 drivers that had gone before him. Now Dane Warren making his way into the final few corners. He's won 5 times at the Hockenheim, by the way, in ESL R1 history. He is very good around here, even though all the plaudits tend to go to his teammate Josh Rogers. Dane Warren makes his way over the line now, and that's right in the ballpark as well. 200ths away from Max Benneker, though. He goes second for the moment, Dane Warren. Don't forget, he has his teammate Mitchell de Jong coming up later.
The thing is genuinely speaking, all of the drivers still to come have the ability to beat that 36.037. They can all move that entire group down towards the back of the field. I'm not sure it's going to come from Enzo Benito. The first sector's about a couple of tenths off where we'd expect. The second sector's a couple of tenths off as well. It's going to be 5th place, unfortunately. Gains a little bit back in that final one, but still not an ideal lap time from the Team Redline driver.
Here's Patrick Hoxman making his way into a semi-final here for Mouse, by the way. It's a good showing from him. It's often Max Benneker on his own, really, or with someone else here. Hoxman has struggled at times last season, didn't make the major, of course, was the only Mouse driver, in fact, not to have made the major. And he's looking to put a change to that in the fall season of 2023. Patrick Holtzman makes his way over the line in 5th place, just sneaks ahead of Enzo Benito, but he'll be a bit disappointed with that, a 36.1 from the German.
It's still very close, though. Like you say, the top 5 there separated by around about a 1/10 of a second. We normally see the top 7 or 8 separated by just a 1/10 of a second around here. You can see bottom right there is the reaction, by the way, from Max Benneker, who remains on pole position. That is pole position Cam in the bottom right. He's still pretty calm. Not sure how if he expected 36.0 to hang on to pole position this long. I think the answer to that question is no, but it continues to hang on just bit by bit as de Jong comes across the line to go 7th.
Not good for Mitchell de Jong, unfortunately. Now, Isaac Price making his way towards the line as well. He's the only G2 Esports driver in this one. Let's not forget Sebastian Job, points leader, is coming up a little bit later on. Price makes his way out of the final corner now and up towards the line. Where's he going to be here? I think it's going to be a couple of attempts away. It's a 10th away, in fact. 5th place for Isaac Price. We're not getting to the heights that we did in the knockouts last night. This is somewhat surprising. Maybe Erhan Yayoski could change that.
Yeah, between the final 3 drivers in this session, Yayovsky, Bennett, Ellis Jr., these are 3 proper front runners, including 2 race winners from yesterday and a freshly minted married man. See what he can do. Erhan Yayovsky coming through the final corner now, looking to be at 36.037. We don't have the sector splits at the moment, but he'll come out in the R8G and come across the line. His teammate Marcel Chintik's had issues in the session, and Yayovsky can't do it, only to 3rd.
Yep, 3rd place for now, half a 10th away, but he is at least into the 36 zeros, and that's not where some others have been so far. Now your pick, Lewis, Luke Bennett is coming up right now and making his way towards the line. He's sliding his way through the final couple of corners, but he's going well so far. This is a decent time. Just wonder whether that last corner has thrown it away a bit. He shakes his head. It's over the line for Luke Bennett, and he does do enough. 11 thousandths of a second quicker than Max Benneker. Luke Bennett is on pole for now.
One final lap time left to go, though. It is Kevin Ellis Jr. The first sector's a bit off from where we expect. The second sector also, but we know the Mercedes comes on strong in the final. Let's see what he can do. Can he challenge that 36.0? You don't need a perfect lap to do so. You just need a perfect final couple of corners to see what Ellis Jr. can do. He won yesterday. Can he win again? He's looking to try and take pole position away from Bennett. He comes across the line and it's not good enough. Goes to 7th. So 7 drivers separated by a second with Bennett on top.
And this is your VRS starting grid after a dramatic qualifying session that saw Marcel Chinchik, reigning champion, starting from the back. Mitchell de Jong was less than 2 tenths away, but he's alongside him on the back row. Enzo Benito and Patrick Holtzman line up just inside the top 10 with Isaac Price and Kevin Ellis Jr. just ahead of them. Darragh McCormack only just made the top 5 despite being at 85 thousandths away from pole. Jamie Fluke lines up directly ahead of his teammate in 5th. Then it's Erhan Yayoski in 4th ahead of Dane Warren and Max Benneker just behind Luke Bennett, who takes pole position for the opening semi-final of the evening here for round 3 of the ESL R1 full season. It's Luke Bennett who will start from the front and look to consolidate that position right to the flag. He's won 3 times at Hockenheim, and maybe today he will grab that 4th win in semi-final number 1. He's in a great place to do it.
Yeah, after, like what I've said before, he had a very disappointing start to this season, where he just didn't quite get off in the best way. Let's put it that way. Back in Monza, seems to be coming on strong as we would expect from Bennett. Obviously, I think it was the first round he left with 0 points, didn't he? Didn't score anything in that first quarterfinal before getting knocked out. Came on strong. Obviously, only finished 9th at the final back in Monza, but looks to continue on with that strong form. I think Bennett's he's certainly a driver that people might have counted out when it comes to going for the overall victory today. We know that BMW strong. We've seen it in hands of Sebastian Jobe.
Glad to see that Marcel Chinchik has added some decoration to his room in the form of a floating bicycle, but he's outside of the top 6 bar. Long way here, Lewis. I've been shocked really to see him get a slowdown in qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, someone's going to get bitten by it, and unfortunately for Chinchik, he's going to be starting from the rear of the field, and that's just sometimes how it goes. He has been knocked out in the quarterfinals before. We have seen it a fair few times. Maybe this is an occasion where we'll see Chinchik once again being knocked out in the semi-finals this time. But still, it's interesting. It's nervy times. It's a very hard circuit to race out, though. That's the problem. If you're starting outside the top 6, it's really hard to race your way inside it.
Yeah, it is, and you've seen how close it was in that qualifying session. That's only going to remain the case throughout the race. Unfortunately for some, there's Mitchell de Jong, who was really frustrated with himself after that qualifying lap. But then he's only 2 tenths away. It's hard to be too down about the lap itself, but maybe the position and the competitiveness that we see in ESL R1 time after time. It was such a close session. We didn't see a 35, actually. Maybe we'll have to wait for semi-final number 2 for one of those. But it's enough for Luke Bennett to get a pole with a low 36. How will he do in this opening semi-final? We're about to get the lights on and get ourselves underway for round 3 of the ESL R1 full season. It's semi-final number 1. Luke Bennett with a good start from the front row, and Max Bedeker's going to tuck in with him. Dane Warren there in 3rd place, getting off to a decent start as well. Then it's Hanioski in 4th. Kevin Ellis Jr. is just inside the top 6 in that 5th place, and then we've got Darren McCormack as well as Jamie Fluke. The 2 Apex cars will be side by side in a moment as well. Through turns 2 and 3 they go. It's McCormack who's making his way inside the top 5, just shoving out the Apex Mercedes by the looks of it, and he will get there. Now the chaos will ensue on the way down towards the hairpin.
Yeah, it was a slow exit from Ellis Jr. courtesy of Haniyovsky, just slowing him up on the apex. Could get attacked by his teammate Jamie Fluke as well as they race their way down side by side up ahead. The movement to the inside from Maximilian Beneker trying to work his way up the order, and he is going to work his way up the order. It's going to be side by side though as they head through the fast kick into the Mercedes arena section. It's got to be very brave though from Dane Warren to try and angle that second position. He's got the inside run, but watch this outside line. It generally works on the exit of the Mercedes arena section. You have the inside for the next bit, and there's contact. Wow, how did he catch that?
Well, I'm not sure, but he's still 3rd, is Dave Warren, and that was very well held indeed. Max Beneker holds on to the position then, just ahead of Dave Warren. Then it's Hanioski, Darren McCormack is there as well, and then it's one of the Apex Mercedes. I think it might be Jamie Fluke who's held on to that position just for the moment. Isaac Price has made up a position. He's in 7th for the moment. Still not yet in that top 6. There's Jamie Fluke holding on to that last transfer spot as we stand.
Yeah, here we go then, completing that very first lap of the race. Like I say, there was plenty of drama over that first one, but it has allowed our race leader to absolutely check out. So disappearing down the road now, it is what it is, but if we look at Jamie Fluke, who was on that that cut-off line. I don't know if there was any major dramas behind all of this, but it's kind of one of those things where it's just, if you haven't made progress now, it becomes infinitely more difficult to make your way up the order.
It does. We saw, as you said earlier, quite tentative knockout races actually, not a lot of overtaking. I get the feeling that that is going to change here with the prospect of a final maybe on the horizon for some of these. They might want to go for it, and Jamie Fluke very nearly does. It's Isaac Price who's going to be making the moves instead though. He's turned defence of Kevin Ellis Jr. into an attack of Jamie Fluke. They're running side by side on the way out of the hairpin for the second time of asking. He'll be stuck on the outside for the next turn though. That turns to the inside for the next braking zone, and Isaac Price is still there. He barges into the side of Jamie Fluke, who's out wide and holds on to the position. He's still in there, and Kevin Ellis Jr. will try and get up the place as well. He's on the inside, going on the way in towards the Mobil 1 curve. Price breaks late though. He hangs him round the outside and he'll hold on to 7th.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Once again, Ellis Jr. now having to defend a little bit from Mitchell de Jong, who joins onto the rear end of the scene. Same with Patrick Holtzman, who's all in the mix there. It's very difficult in this section, but that shows again how hard it is to race. Yes, you can have looks for moves, but actually completing them is very, very difficult indeed. Enzo Benito sits off the rear of this field. Marcel Cincic only picking up the single position over the start of this race and pulling off to one side. I wonder if Cincic was having some problems there on the exit of the final corner, if that was just in total defence of Benito. I think that's exactly what it is. I don't see Marcel Cincic making his way through in all of this. I don't see it happening. I don't think he's got the position to do so. Luke Bennett checked off down the road. He's gone. He's out of here, and it's just a fight between second and 12th. There's confirmation of where we are in the race on the left-hand side. Bennett, Benneker, Warren, Yovsky, McCormack, and Fluke, the 6 at the moment, moving through into the final.
Yeah, I would go as far to say the top 3 are probably safe right now, but anybody else should be sweating. That's because Darren McCormack has just made his way down the inside of Erhan Yovsky. He hasn't made the move stick, but he was alongside for a brief moment, getting a little bit excited maybe, because they do want to just create that little bit of a gap to the cut line before they start making those moves, in my opinion. But clearly Darren McCormack is not interested in waiting around. He's 5th for the moment, just behind Erhan Yovsky. They're creating a gap though to that battle for 6th place. Jamie Fluke is a long way back at this point. He's going to have a lot of defending to do in this race, but for now, he's got that slight bit of breathing space. And of course, he's got his teammate Kevin Ellis Jr. to help him in that he will attack Isaac Price and take his focus away from his teammate.
Now let's see what happens in these kind of battles. We saw it yesterday. We've seen it throughout the entirety of ESL R1 this season, where in these kind of positions we've seen drivers go for moves. We've seen them go on the attack, whether it was at Monza or at Spa. They've gone on the attack to try and take over 2nd position, over 4th position, over whatever. You know, they've actually gone for the moves. Around here yesterday, we didn't see any of that. Now, I'm not sure if that's because they couldn't go on the attack, or whether they weren't risking it, because it's quite a risky place to go for moves. So you got the big one down to the hairpin, that's about it. And so I'm kind of curious to see if people are going to be patient in this grouping. But again, as we've said before, points are up for every single position in ESL R1 now. So if you can, if you're running in 4th position like Erhan Yovsky, you're scoring 13 points now. If you make that 1 position more, it's 3 more points. Those are the points that can make the difference, not only for you going to Sweden at the end of the season, but also for winning the team's championship. We ride on board here with Patrick Holtzman trying to get past. Mitchell de Jong is getting a big send down into the head as Patrick Holtzman potentially working his way through.
Well, it's not quite the exit he would have liked, though, for Holtzman, I'm afraid. He's going to find himself on the outside then for the braking zone of the Mercedes Arena. That's turn 8, which is coming up right now. And Mitchell de Jong will hold on to the position. Marcel Cincic deciding not to get involved, hangs back, and maybe will benefit. Oh, as a result, and he's just been swiped there by Patrick Holtzman. Trying to find a gap there that was ever closing, really, and he found himself in the grass briefly. He'll hold on to 11th just for the moment. But as you say, this transfer spot now is looking ever more distant for this bottom 4.
Yeah, again, you can see those gaps. The reason why I say bottom 4, the gap between Mitchell de Jong and Kevin Ellis Jr. is a second, which around here, you're outside of the slipstream bubble. You're kind of relying on a couple of mistakes from those ahead. And trust me, these kind of drivers, they practice so much. When in a championship like ESL R1, where everyone's on a fixed setup, you're not spending hundreds of laps adjusting your setup, changing the ARBs, adjusting spring stiffness, maybe playing about with where the rear wing is, tyre pressure, etc. You don't play about with any of that. You're just out there learning the track and driving, and then you've driven these 4 tracks time and time again since February. Meaning that these drivers have done their fair share of laps around the Hockenheimring, i.e. at this level, they don't make mistakes in races. Not big ones, not anything that's going to cost them. Yeah, they might drift off an apex by a couple of centimetres, but that's about it. Let's see if Kevin Ellis Jr. can get past Isaac Price here at the hairpin.
Very late on the brakes is Kevin Ellis Jr. and he might well find it a bit of room here. Isaac Price tries to squeeze him as much as possible, but that's not going to keep in the place, unfortunately. Kevin Ellis Jr. should have this on the way in towards the Mercedes Arena. It is in the name, he is in the car, of course, and so he should have this place. But Price is giving him a good run for his money. Round the outside of 8, we'll give him the inside at 9 and 10. And now they'll run through, absolutely door to door again. Ellis Jr. just over the curbs, and he hasn't made his move. He has put his teammate into security at least. Jamie Fluke should hold on to 6th from here, but now Kevin Ellis Jr. just wants 7th at the very least. Pick up the points you can, but he looks to be out in this first semi-final.
Yeah, it's a big shame for Kevin Jr. Like I said, of the two Apex Racing Team drivers that are in this at the moment, I would have said that it was Kevin Jr. that was going to be the one going through, and maybe Jamie Fluke not. That is very wrong, but it just shows how tight ESL R1 is. You know, when of the 12 drivers that get through into the semi-finals, but obviously 24 when you count both semi-finals, genuinely, all of them can make it through into the final. Every single one of them has the ability to make it through the final, which means, and they all know that, by the way, it just means that half the grid is going to be irritated, completely irritated, baffled, frustrated, annoyed, and that carries through the season, especially having a couple of races like that back to back. It's what makes this so brutal, and why front runners don't typically last at the front for too long, because someone will figure something out and they'll get knocked off their perch. Let's see if Kevin Jr. can get past Isaac Price. He might look down the inside as there is a bit of a look from Patrick Holtz from behind, but no, like I say, you're absolutely right. The ship has sailed, and that ship is Jamie Fluke, and he's gone.
Yep, yes. Should hold on to to sixth from here. He's just behind Darren McCormack, who's giving Erhan Yoski a bit less of a hard time than he was on lap 2 or 3 earlier on in this one. Dane Warren is still in third, behind Max Benecke, and then it's Luke Bennett who is still leading the way, although that gap has been cut to below a second for the first time in a while. Maybe the BMW is just beginning to slip and slide a bit, as it tends to in anybody's hands other than Sebastian Jobs, who's done a fantastic job with that, taking the first 2 rounds of the season. He'll be up later, by the way, in case you're wondering where he is. That'll be coming up in semi-final number 2 here later on this evening. But for now, it's about his teammate Isaac Price, and holding on to this 7th position from Kevin Jr. So far, he has managed that, but at the end of another lap, Dennis Jr. just gets closer and closer. Still 4 remaining in this one, with the top 6 looking likely to go through and likely to remain unchanged, apart from the positions within that top 6, of course, which may change in the next few laps.
Now, Ewan, I'm going to bring up an odd point here, which seems counterintuitive, but I'm going to stick with it. Obviously, we've said about how many drivers are inside, the top 10 in the championship in this semi-final. It's where things get very interesting for me, because as much as this on paper, when it comes to the championship, is the stronger of the 2 semi-finals, I actually don't believe it is. Looking at the driver list for semi-final 2, I'm terrified of that driver list. There is so many, obviously, you've got Josh Rogers, you've got Sebastian Joe, and all that lot. Yeah, sure, but there's a big name to that, as here comes the move down the inside from Patrick Holtzman to try and get past Mick de Jong. I think de Jong's going to have the drive off the corner and is going to hold the position in 9th, once again, seeing that this circuit is very difficult to overtake at. But I'd say semi-final 2, it might not be on paper the strongest, but I'd say it's stronger than semi-final 1 and should be more exciting, which I am all for.
Yeah, I agree, by the way. I was looking at that a little bit earlier on, just without the context of the point standings, and thought, yeah, I wouldn't want to be in either of them, but if I could pick one, it would be semi-final 1, because I think it is just that little bit weaker, but by a little bit weaker, I really do mean a little bit. It's still a very difficult prospect, and very close between the top and the bottom as well, as you saw in qualifying. 2 attempts covering the laps of those who didn't get a slowdown. Sorry, Marcel Cicic. He's kind of sunk himself, unfortunately, and he'll know that. There was a great little bit in, as we have a look at race control, by the way, in the bottom right, looking at a few things that have gone on so far. There was a great little bit in his documentary not so long ago, Lewis, about qualifying and the way, sort of, as he gives a place over to Enzo Benito there, about the way he prepares for qualifying by sort of pacing around his room and sort of staying away from the sim until there's about 20-30 seconds remaining. Then he gets in, then he gets himself focused. But unfortunately, qualifying has not gone very well for him this time, which is pretty uncharacteristic, really.
No, it is good to have a routine before qualifying. Obviously, it's so brutal. A lot of times you sit there for sometimes 3 minutes. And so I get why he gets out of the rig. I remember when I got, whatever, it's a long time ago, not in the championship like ESL R1, fair enough. But I got a pole position in a league. Well, it was at a point where I set a lap. Here comes Cicic straight back down the inside of Benito, by the way, fighting over what is effectively the wooden spoon in semi-final 1. But I remember getting the pole position, and it was about halfway through the session. I knew I couldn't improve on the lap. I had to leave the room. I was like, I can't improve on that. Bye. And I had to leave. I was like, I can't deal with that. And it's interesting to hear that, of course, there are many stories of people lower down in sim racing getting their chance at something and then getting close and having these kind of moments where their heart's racing. That happens at the biggest level as well. These drivers all go through that kind of emotion, same as everyone. It's what makes sim racing so great, from the front of the field to the back, from the top of sim racing to the very bottom. It's what makes it so exciting and so raw.
Yeah, it's it's the same all the way through sim racing, which is a remarkable thing. And that was very close with Patrick Holtzman to Mitchell de Jong, but yeah, the experiences that you feel at home are somewhat similar in any championship in the world, including this one. Still 2 laps to go in round 3 of ESL R1's full season. This is semi-final number 1, and Luke Bennett is still leading the way. Looks like he might well have enough to hold on here from Max Benneker, who's still 3/4 of a second away. Then it's Dane Warren to round out the rest of the top 3. Further back is where the battling is. Kevin Ellis Jr. has not given Isaac Price such a hard time over the last few moments, but he has secured his teammate Jamie Fluke a space inside that top 6. Now Kevin Ellis Jr. wants those extra couple of points that he would get for a 7th place finish in this race, and he might well get it as well. Patrick Holtzman would like an extra point as well. He goes down the inside now. Mitchell de Jong on the way towards the hairpin. Oh, he got close to Kevin Ellis Jr. in fact. He brakes really late. Not a great exit either, just sliding a little bit on the acceleration of that Porsche will keep him alongside on the way into turn 8.
Yeah, I think Race Control might want to take a look at that one. That was maybe a little bit too aggressive for Patrick Holtzman, although we didn't get through, so fair enough. Obviously, we'll be quite busy behind the scenes. I think one place, thankfully, where there shouldn't be too much work is inside that top 6. I don't think really anything's happened within that grouping, which is kind of how they're playing it at the moment. I mean, Benneker has been bitten by that in the first round of the season, where in the semi-finals he got involved in an instant. I remember calling it before we went into the race, and again, Karasi couldn't believe it. Nor could George. So I was like, I don't think Benneker's going through into the final. And they were like, well, are you serious? And he got a penalty, and that was what cost him getting through into the final, which means that for round 1, he's been booted out of the final, courtesy of a penalty. Round 2, he had the final cost of him, courtesy of a penalty. Is he going to get through round 3 clean? That's the important bit for Maximilian Benneker, as you can see, looking over the shoulder in Race Control.
Yeah, there is the look at Race Control and quite what they're up to. By the way, if Luke Bennett were able to see this one out, he would take his 11th race win in ESL R1 history, which would tie him for second most with Marcel Chinchik, who's also in this heat, as you can see. So at lap 10 for Luke Bennett, looks like he's on his way to another 25 minutes in the championship, sort of resurrecting his championship, if you like, after a very weak start, as you mentioned, at Monza, where things really didn't go his way, although I don't think it was all his fault, but he'll have to sort of make a resurgence at the next Monza round we've got coming up in the not too distant future, in the next month or so. So it's the final lap now, not many changes. That's even down at the back on this one. It's Luke Bennett, who looks to be cruising to a victory by about half a second.
Yeah, I'll take all the credit for it as well. Thank you, thanks Luke. It's because I picked you that you're running strong. Commentator's curse doesn't exist and all that. Thank you. I know Dane Baird behind the scenes will be saying commentator's curse does exist, but it's your birthday, so shut up. Either way, into Mobile 1 they'll go. It's been a very nice performance from Bennett. The qualifying lap, though, might concern, because they're obviously watching semi-final 2, and I expect the quali laps you're in will be faster in semi-final 2 than what we saw here.
Possibly, and well, certainly wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, but we'll have to wait and find out, of course. Luke Bennett won't be there, though. He'll be resting up for the final. He makes his way around the last corner, and Luke Bennett takes semi-final number 1 here at ESL R1. Points to the camera as well, says this one's mine, and he takes the win here at the Hockenheim after 10 laps, unchallenged after that pole lap, of course. Max Benneker tucked in behind him on the opening corner of the race, and Luke Bennett never looked back from there. It's the Team Redline driver who takes his race win in round number 3, and he's straight through to the final.
It's that new camera position. He's changed where his camera is, and also put on a lot of pink lights, which, you know, whatever, I'm not a fan of. But I've got to say, really impressive drive, really clean, really smooth. I said before that quite a lot of teams and drivers might have maybe looked past Luke Bennett and Team Redline after a struggled start to the full season. Is this the point where they start changing things around rapidly? I think there's some potential for that.
There is. They've got all 4 of their drivers in, of course. We'll have Kevin Siggy, Jeffrey Rietveld in the second semi-final coming up a little bit later on, so the chances are looking good for them, although Enzo Benito is unfortunately out after that first semi-final, so they won't be getting all 4 through to the final. But we'll have to wait and see who can, as a result of this wild situation that we've seen with 4 teams. We're seeing all 4 of their drivers here this evening. In second place was Max Benneker, of course, for Maus. And he's going to join us now, so Lewis can have a bit of a chat with him.
Oh, I think he'll be with us in a second.
Sorry,
we won't panic too much. He'll be with us. He's desperate to get to it. He wants to hear what Max Benneker's opinions were, not only on the race but also back in Spa.
Do I want to hear what he has to say about last week? Because
Well, we're going to
we
find
don't
out.
know what he's going to say. We are going to find out. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear. So looking forward to that. But he drove well, second place in. Can't complain too much about that. I mean, lost a few points, but he'll be more than fine with that.
I said with Rory earlier, I think we're going to see a slightly different Maximilian Benneker based on the fact of what we've seen from round 1 and round 2. I know he doesn't agree with either of the penalties that he's got, but I think he's still kind of like, okay, that's fine. If that's how it's going to be, fine. We'll deal with this when we get to Sweden. I'm just going to tick off some nice tidy points to put myself in the best position. Because in the early parts of the knockout, he was not going on the attack and was just kind of sat in the position.
These are the results, by the way, from semi-final number 1. Whole field covered by 7.5 seconds, by the way. But Luke Bennett will make it through with the full 25 points, of course. Max Benneker, who we just talked about, in second. Dane Warren joined them on the podium after a brief challenge to the German in second, of course, earlier on. Erhan Yoski held off an early charge from Darren McCormack to finish fourth. And Jamie Fluke secured his place in the final there with a sixth. Just missing out was Isaac Price by about a second and a half in the end. Kevin S. Jr. couldn't get past him. Mitchell de Jong in night fed of Holtzman, Chinchik and Benito, who round out your 12 from semi-final number 1. But let's now transfer to the interview with Max Benneker from second place. We'll do that in a couple of moments. But yeah, a great six to have in the final. And now we'll see, obviously, in about a quarter of an hour or so, who can get through from semi-final number 2 as well, because as you mentioned earlier, it's an even more stacked grid, we believe anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really strong one in semi-final 2. So excited to see how that one's going to play out. Obviously, semi-final 1 was maybe a little bit calmer than we were expecting, even outside of the top 6. I wonder if that's going to continue. I wonder if that's going to continue even into the final, because Hockenheim Ring's just so hard to race at. If it is all going to come down to what will be a thrilling qualifying session. One thing I don't think we'll see, we were kind of predicting this last round, that we were going to see record laps in qualifying. We did thankfully get one, courtesy of Sebastian Job. I don't think we're going to get one this time. They've not been pushing close enough into those 35.9s. We really need to see a 35.8 if we're going to see a record lap time. I think it's a 35.932, something in that category. That's the fastest lap we've seen so far.
I think we are going to get a 35.9 at some point in the course of the day, though. But maybe not. I mean, you never know. Then again, we were building up the idea of a record lap 2 weeks ago when we at Spa, and saying, well, it might not happen now because we're quite late on, and then right at the very end, Sebastian Job pulls it out the bag and puts in an absolute storming lap time. So you just never know. You've got to keep watching right to the very end in ESL R1, of course. But yeah, I've got to say I agree. I've been a little bit surprised about the lack of overtaking so far in the knockouts and the first semi-final as well. It is surprising because I do believe that Hockenheim is a decent circuit to race on. But anyway, let's. Now, I believe Max Benneker is here with Rory. No, well, Max Benneker's not here. It's him. So we'll head back to Rory and yes, get our reflections on that first semi-final and build up towards the second.
Hello. Well, what a semi-final one that was. Well, what a great race. I mean, quali separated by 0.2 of a second. Absolutely mad. I mean, if I was within 0.2 of a second, I'd expect to be second or something like that. But I think it was Mitchell de Jong, I think, 11th place. Just absolutely mad. It shows how the small kind of like the small like errors and stuff really cost you at this level. But we've got Bruno back. Bruno, good to see you again. Let's cover that semi-final, shall we? What did you make of that?
Yeah, thanks, man. Good to be back. So that was an interesting one. Just as we were talking about before the race, how close everything is. You just mentioned it. I mean, P11, 0.2 off the pace. That's incredible. And the first three were separated by less than a tenth. So that just shows, again, what we were saying before. If you miss this opportunity on this one lap, it can destroy your weekend. And again, it was the same case now for semi-final. And we saw Luke Bennett with the BMW M4 winning. Great performance, by the way. Also with the BMW M4 GT3, it was really, really nice to see that was winning the race. But again, in the race was interesting because we saw Luke Bennett making a gap very early on, having an advantage in pace, a pretty big one actually. And all of a sudden, Maximilian Benneker starting to pick up the pace and catching and catching and catching and catching. And in the end, I think he finished within less than 5 tenths behind Luke Bennett. So it's very promising for the final.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the closeness thing, because I can't get my head around this. So 2 tenths covered the first 11 in quali, and then the whole field after 15 minutes of racing was 7.5 seconds. What kind of pressure does that put on a driver, and what kind of pressure do you think these guys will be feeling with everything just that close?
That's very, very intense. I mean, they are professionals, so they know they are in the level of concentration before the race or before a qualifying that I think it's very difficult for someone that doesn't do competition to understand how focused they are. I think if you take a needle in the best focus moments, in a very intense focus moment, if you take a needle and you would pinch them with the needle on their arm, I think they would not feel it because they are so focused, and it's very, very intense. I think when you do sim racing, also when I do it, I do a lot of training, a lot of fitness training. You can do as much training as you want. Sim racing is so close, it's so intensive that after 10 laps you start sweating a lot. I've seen the drivers in the first race where I was in Katowice. I've seen the drivers going out of the simulator after 10 laps and sweating like crazy just because it's so intense from the concentration, from how nervous you are and how close it is. You cannot allow yourself any mistake, and that's why it's so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about the other drivers, but while we've got you and you've got that BMW M4 in the background, it would be remiss of me not to talk about you and your journey. Yeah, do.
Here it is.
Wow, incredible. Hopefully it'll look that good after the weekend. I hope I haven't just jinxed that. but yeah, if you could just, Bruno, if you could just give us a little bit of insight into your journey of where you started and how you got to sit where you are right now.
So I started go-karts. I started in go-karts when I was a very young kid. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was already very focused on cars. I just loved speed. I loved cars. When I was sitting in the back with my parents in the car, I was always telling my father to drive faster, overtake this car, overtake right, overtake left, always telling him to drive faster and to push. So this was already from the beginning a passion. I was watching all the Formula 1 races with my dad, of course, and I knew all car brands. As a young kid, the first thing I was saying was car names, so I knew all the car brands. And then I started to do go-kart. My dad said, okay, now you're going to try a go-kart. You're going to try a go-kart, and this go-kart is going to be, I was like 9.5 years old. So I tried a go-kart for the first time at 9.5. And my mom made me try a lot of different sports. She made me try like tennis. She made me try golf, football, rugby. But the only thing I wanted to do was driving. So in the end, I tried this go-kart. Probably my parents were hoping that I was not going to like it, but I loved it. And it started from there. I did 7 years of go-karts, won races, won championship in go-karts. After these 7 years, I went to Formula Renault, won North American Championship, did 2 years of Formula Renault. And then I did Formula 3 for 2 years. And at the end of Formula 3, I got a test back in the days from Mercedes in DTM. This test went very well. And I did my first year as a professional race car driver in 2005 in DTM, and did 15 years of DTM. And now I'm racing everywhere in the world for BMW Motorsport. So I won the DTM championship for them in 2012. Did 7 years of DTM with BMW. Or 8 years even of DTM with BMW, and now racing in GT3 everywhere in the world. In Japan, doing the Super GT Championship, which is an amazing championship. You're having between 50,000 and 80,000 people to come to watch the race. So it's a great atmosphere, very professional teams there. It's one of the best championships in the world I've ever competed in. I have to say, the Super GT in Japan, so I'm very happy to be there. And also GT in Italy, we are leading the championship at the moment. Now racing here in the GT Masters is maybe a one-off. I'm not sure I'm going to do another one this year. It was a late call, but I'm here doing the race weekend. And then I'm also developing, sorry, my son running in the back.
Don't you worry.
Then I'm also he's also a car fan, by the way. And I'm also developing I'm doing a lot of development testing for BMW Motorsport with the M4 GT3 Evo, because in 2025 there will be an Evo package coming out. So I'm doing a lot of development for that. And on top of this, ambassador for sim racing in BMW and ambassador for BMW Classic. So a lot of stuff to do, but I just love it and love it to be involved everywhere.
Yeah, plenty going on, including your kids in the background, which is a nice segue actually, because don't worry, my kids will probably burst in at any moment, so don't worry about that. How do you think it's different for you in how you progress through your career to how the young guys are now with everything we've got with all the sims and stuff? Just give us get your quick view on how that's different for drivers these days.
It's a very good point, because I think in these days it's quite amazing what you can do with simulators, how much you can improve as a racing driver, how much you can work on your skills in a simulator. Like, for example, even for me, last time I went to Suzuka in Japan, I didn't know the track. I did a lot of laps in Suzuka with my BS competition teammates, and then I came to Suzuka and I felt like I knew the track already. So it's a great preparation. I really believe that good simulator guys, good simulator drivers, good sim racers can become good race car drivers. It takes time to adapt to the weight of the car, to the braking, to the sliding of the car, to change of direction and everything. Your body needs to adapt to this. In a simulator, you don't have all that, so your body needs to adapt. It's something different. But someone who is doing a lot of sims, who is good at sim racing, can definitely develop his talent in real life, I think. And I think that's where these drivers are very lucky nowadays. In the past, I didn't have that, so you couldn't develop your skills with simulator. You couldn't develop your skills with something you have at home. Driving as much as you want, training as much as you want, putting yourself in pressure situation in a simulator. You couldn't do that. You could only do that through go-karts. And I think probably today, I think it would be, for a racing driver to develop himself quickly and good, would be a mix of simulator racing and go-kart racing would be the optimal way to train yourself. And I think that's a great tool to be ready for real life racing.
Mm-hmm. It's like I said before, it's like a treadmill for runners, right? These sims, you don't have to run all the time. You can practice whenever you want, and that's such a big thing for these races. I think I completely agree with you. Just quickly about the future. We just touched on the future slightly, but in terms of ESL and its future, if you had a crystal ball, where would you see this series in 5 years? Where do you see it going? We've seen the growth already. I think we both agree it's been absolutely fantastic so far. Where do you see this series in 5 years' time, or what do you hope to see for every competitor and BS Plus competition?
Yeah, so in my opinion, I mean, as I said before, I think ESL and Rennsport took sim racing to another level. How much has been invested in there and how professional everything is. After a first year, I see this growing very, very fast. And I don't see any limit, actually, for what you can do with the platform, with ESL, with Rennsport, with the drivers, with the team. And I think that's also why manufacturers are very strongly involved in this sim racing, and also with Rennsport together. So I see it growing massively, and already what has been achieved in a year is very impressive.
Yes, impressive and very, very exciting. Now, you've been around these drivers, you've got 4 of your own at BS Plus competition, and I'm sure many in the program that we haven't seen in ESL R1. When you spot a new talent, just quickly, what is being a real race driver always the goal, or are there other things they can do? Like sim drivers, we know Sebastian Job is the Red Bull sim racing sort of tester. How do you see that for the future of these guys, just quickly?
I don't know if for everybody it's being a sim racer is always becoming a real world driver is always the goal. I'm not 100% sure of that. Some definitely want to do that, but I think some are very, very strong and also very happy with what they can achieve in sim racing, because sim racing has become incredibly big. And so, like, for manufacturers, for example, BMW is very strongly involved with BM competition and also as a brand, because sim racing opens different doors for manufacturer, for younger people. It's a young image. It's developing the future. What we're doing in sim racing is just amazing, and I think it has no limits, and that's why manufacturers are well involved, and that's why also for drivers, it's not a must to become a real life drivers, because sim racing has a big future, I think.
Yeah, it's fantastic for people like you to say that. But Bruno, I just want to say on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for your time. We'll end it there. Thank you so much for your insight. It was fantastic to hear, your views on everything from motor racing to real racing. Best of luck. Best of luck to for the rest of the weekend in the Masters. Do you have
Thank you very
anything
much,
to add
guys.
before
Thank
we
you for
leave
having
you?
me. Thank you.
Any final words, or are you off?
Final words. I wish good luck to the BMW guys, of course. And I think big chance for Maximilian Beneke to win the final.
Nice. Thank you so much, Bruno. We appreciate it. Get back to your kids. And with that, after Bruno, fantastic chat with him there. We've got a very exciting bit of news from Rennsport. Cool. I was just literally watching that myself, actually. That looks fantastic, that Rennsport teaser, Lewis. Well, what did we see there? I spotted a Porsche Cup car. I spotted the potential for a new series. I've had a whisper in my ear that there is a prize in conjunction with Rennsport and Porsche. So you'll have to put your put two and two together there. And how you get involved is, firstly, you need a key. You need the game. So that's the first thing you need. So make sure that you're on. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there's a key.
Is that my son's handwriting? Has my son been writing code
Thank
for you, Lewis?
you. Thank you. I am actually.
But no, very good.
Weirdly enough.
Okay, fine. It's news to me. But yes, there is a key there. And if you want to know more details about that, you've got two things you can do. Either get the Rennsport app or go get yourself on the website. If you couldn't read Lewis's handwriting, I'm sure there'll be plenty more codes throughout the broadcast. So do keep yourself or keep your eyes peeled. Now, Lewis, what do you make of that? Very, very exciting.
Yeah, no. Again, always new content coming out for Rennsport is a good thing. I've been on the beta. I'm sure you've probably done your fair share on when we're doing like the little watch-alongs on the Thursdays, getting out between the races, going out in the cars. I've driven all of the cars that we've got, so I'm excited to have another one to chuck around. The Cup car's slightly different to how a GT3 drives. It's a bit more slippery on the rear end. Do you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I say, it opens the door for new series as well, and more stuff on the horizon. So it's kind of great time to just get involved with Rennsport and get yourself on the beta.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a lot of fun sticking those GT3s into the barrier, so I look forward to sticking that Porsche Cup car, that beautiful Porsche Cup car, into the barriers. Now, Bruno Spengler. Wow, what a good chat with him! What a wonderful insight. How did you find that?
What a motorsport legend. When I first started watching things like DTM back in 2013, obviously he was the reigning champion. He's well known over the German scene of racing and well known in world motorsport, as well as even in the sim racing world. Not even just as a motorsport driver. He's known for doing his sim racing and enjoying his sim racing. And actually, he's pretty damn quick on the sim. You don't actually, yeah, sure, you'll be there. Of course, he's a real racing driver. Of course, he's going to be quick on the sim. Doesn't normally translate that. He's put some work in to get fast on the sims. And also, he's just a really nice guy. I remember back in Katowice, kind of walking into the hotel and, he's seen all the BMW M Team BS competition team and have a little chat with them and then saying, "Oh, are you staying for a drink?" And I was like, that's Bruno Spengler asking if I'm going to stay. Oh my God, what a dream.
Nice, yeah. Always really, really good to have these real-world drivers involved in it. Quickly, let's have a chat because BS Competition, his team didn't do quite so well yesterday. Let's just have a quick recap of the knockout rounds that we both did the watch-alongs for last night. Any surprises out of there that we haven't already covered?
I think the big one really is Thibaut Casabon taking that victory yesterday. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, of course, you got Josh Rogers taking the victory, Sebastian Joe as well. But Thibaut Casabon was really, honestly, for me, the shining light from both those knockouts, 3 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't one of my picks, but I'm happy for him. But we're now ready for semi-final number 2. We should have the lineup here. It's a pretty heavy-hitting lineup, as all of these are. Top 2, obviously, Lewis, stand out for me there. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, like we were saying, yes, sure, it doesn't have the heavy hitters inside the top 10 of the championship in a sense. It's not got as many as semi-final 1. I'd still say this is arguably stronger. Sebastian Job, Josh Rogers, Yuri Toman, Kevin Siggy, Jeff Rietveld, Moritz Lerner, all big drivers to really keep an eye on. I mean, those would be my picks for moving their way through. But, who knows? Maybe Casabon, maybe Kaiki Oliveira's got a really good record with moving their way through. It's a scary semi-final. I'm not lying. I'm looking at it being... I don't know who the 6 are. You could genuinely pull 6 names randomly out of a hat and those will be the 6. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, to be honest. You've got to get lucky to predict who the winner of these things are. But just quickly, who are the 2? Well, we've got 2 battles, haven't we, that you've highlighted, 2 head-to-heads. Who are these drivers that you're going to be looking at in this one?
Yeah, we'll ignore the obvious between Rogers and Joe, but we'll move a little bit further down because there's some other big ones on there. Keithley versus Thibaut Casabon. I mean, these two, they subbed in through various points of the spring season and now are mainstays in the fall season. Keithley's been off to a somewhat troubled start of the season, but still is getting stronger and stronger. Both of them have decent top 6 percentages, and Thibaut Casabon with those 2 podiums, one of which was a race victory yesterday. A fantastic couple to keep an eye on. They're not the only 2 that I picked, though. I did also take a little look through and I picked Yuri Toman and Jeffrey Rietveld are the other 2. I mean, these 2 are fantastic when it comes to that consistency. I know Rietveld's not had a good start to the season, Rory, but you can tell by their stats they're good.
Yeah, and we saw Jeffrey Rietveld doing his thing out in Saudi as well. But as we said, anybody can win this one, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Actually, I'll go first. I'm going to take the boring pick, as I said, and as I always do. I think Sebastian Job's going to win this one. I think he's going to win the entire round for me, and to do that, I think he's going to win. He's going to win this semi here. Who do you think's going to win?
Josh Rogers. I'll take the other easy one.
Right, that leaves one other person. So the 2 easy slam dunk picks have been chosen. Ewan, are you out there, my friend? Who have you got for this one?
Well, I've got Scraps is what I've got because you've gone for Job and Rogers, but the rest of them are absolutely fine. I'm going to go for Thibaut Casabon as a little bit of a left field pick, purely because I'd like to see him do it again, if I'm honest, rather than I actually think he will. I think he will get through to the final, but for him to win is a stretch. I hope for him that he does it after taking that opening win last night.
Oh, nice. Okay, so Scraps, you're not going to have many friends in the canteen in Sweden, are you, my friend? But on that note, I'm going to hand over to you guys because you're just about ready for the qualifying of semi-final number 2. Take it away, gentlemen.
Cheers, Rory. I mean, you worked so hard to win over Yuri Kasdorp last night, and you've just thrown it straight in the bin. Off he goes.
Oh,
Scraps. No. My goodness me, that is brutal.
No, sorry.
No,
I mean, I am joking because, as we were saying in the first semi-final, this one actually, I do believe anyway, and we both believe is a little bit stronger. So, it's a joke really. But I think Job and Rogers are the main 2 favourites, and most would accept that.
I think, if you're playing the percentage game, it's always going to be Rogers and Job as the favourites in this one. When it comes to the driver that's won the most races in the ESL R1 to the driver that's a 2-time finalist winner this season is looking really, really strong right now. They sit above the rest of the field ever so slightly. But that doesn't mean that they are going to win. That doesn't mean it's nailed on. There are a lot of drivers in this that are looking for the recovery. Kevin Siggy looking for a recovery to a poor start to the season. Yuri Toman, who we know is consistent and can pick up victories even around here at Hockenheimring. Say Thibaut Casmon, fresh of that victory yesterday. Jeffrey Rietveld, who we know his consistency and the ability that he has to pick up race victories in the knockout and in the semi-finals. He's moving his way forward. We'll have to wait and see. We're on board with Eamon Murphy, though, as qualifying begins. The first lap time that we'll see in the hands of the Irishman coming over that first sector at 20 points. It's pretty decent for a BMW. Maybe a little bit off where we would expect. Probably around, I'd say it's around about half a tenth to a tenth off, but it's nothing major. It's still very much in the running for that sort of 36.0, maybe even a sneaky 35.9.
Yeah, I still think it's absolutely fine, and he can get a 35 with that opening sector. I mean, I was very impressed with Eamon Murphy's qualifying lap last night. Actually, got his way through a quarter-final for, as you say, well, it's like they know what I'm going to say, for the first time this season. And so it was a good showing from him. And from G2 overall, actually, to get 3 of them out of the 4 into that semi-final is a good showing from them. So good job from them so far, but they'll need to continue that on throughout the semi-finals, of course. 45.5 in the middle sector as well. Maybe this will be a tenth or two away. I think it'll be a low 36 here, but he could do something special at the end.
I'm going to go with a 0.1. It's going to be a 36.15. There we go. We'll see. 36.15. We'll keep our fingers crossed. That's close to where it is, mostly based on the fact that I just want to be right. I'd rather be faster, but you never know. Out towards the line, Eamon Murphy will go to complete the first lap and the benchmark of the session. He crosses over the line. It's a 36.0. That's much better than we were expecting. So Eamon Murphy with a very solid lap time that would have put him on pole position in semi-final 1.
Yeah, a very good final sector there as well, which has really helped him along. So that's the benchmark, and it may be difficult to beat. Kaki Oliveira is the only Furia driver once again here, carrying the team forward in towards a semi-final. We'll see if he can get anywhere near that time of Eamon Murphy. We're not going to see the sector time by the looks of things. And as you can see, Eamon Murphy already sat back and watching as he sees if this is enough for pole. Oliveira goes over line. That's good, but it's only 11 thousandths away. That would have got him right up on the first 2 rows of semi-final 1 as well.
Okay, we've got a tight session on our hands, ladies and gents. This is going to be a close one. Eamon Murphy in the bottom right, our pole position cab. You can see his reaction. That will change if someone else removes him from pole position. Can that driver be Yuri Toman, sitting about 3 centimetres away from his wheel? He'll push it out of the final corner and up towards the line. Is there going to be an improvement on that 36? There is a 35.9, and I think Sebastian Job has got a slowdown in the session. So there's a big drama for the number 22.
Huge drama, and the curse of number 3 may be rearing its head again. We've never seen anybody perform a hat-trick in ESL R1 round winning before, but Sebastian Job was on the cusp of it. Now he's got a huge job in his hands to repeat that now. Moritz Lerner will be next across the line, though, for Maus. He's got Yuri Kansdorp with him in this one, of course, as Maus saw all 4 of their drivers into the semi-finals. Moritz Lerner has got a good chance of getting the final as well. He's only 17 thousandths away with a 35.9 himself.
Okay, this is tight. This is tight. All 4 of those within a tenth of a second, and all of them being very, very strong lap times. You need a perfect lap here to settle yourself onto the front row, onto pole position. Has Kevin Siggy had a perfect lap? He's normally quite emotional when he comes to the corner. You can see that anger, that aggression from him. This time you're not really seeing it. It's because it's a decent lap time. Puts him into second. That is 3:35 so far. None of them lower than a 9.81, which Yuri Toman set, but it's very close. And you can see there, Sector 1, it is a slowdown for Sebastian Job.
The 2 big favourites as well, because Josh Rogers has got one now.
Whoa.
The 2 huge favourites for semi-final number 2 have both got slowdowns, and this is huge drama. Sebastian Job is going to do what he can, because he is in a fight with Rogers for that back row. Who's going to be inside, who's going to be outside? Job is going to be 1.5 seconds down, along with Josh Rogers. This is drama we could not have imagined at the start of today. Semi-final number 2, producing surprises in qualifying.
Unbelievable. This is what we were saying. This is what we were saying. Yes, they might be the top 2. They might be the favourites. But you never know what happens in the ESL R1. That's what makes this so exciting. So Sebastian Job and Joshua Rogers predicted to be starting from the rear of the field. Will anyone join them? Can Mac back and do something with the Porsche Commander team? Out through the final corner, he'll go up towards the line. Doesn't look particularly pleased with it. I think it might be 6th place. Certainly is. Just over a tenth off of pole.
It's not bad though, is it? It really isn't. He's only, what, a 35-1 there? I mean, not bad at all. Josh Rogers makes his way around the final sector then, and this is unfortunately a hiding to nothing for him because he's got a slowdown in the opening sector. I bet you can guess where that was, at turn 1, where you're really balancing a thin line, of course, between absolute perfection and a cut track and a slowdown over the course of your qualifying lap. Josh Rogers makes his way towards the line. He will be 1.4 seconds down. At least he's ahead of Joe, but that's not much consolation in a high-pressure qualifying session like this.
Yeah, a little giggle there. I think it's more just a giggle. What a joke! What a joke of a lap. You know, running wide at the first corner. That's what Hockenheimring. That's why it's so brutal around it. Why I absolutely despise this circuit. It's such a difficult corner. Yuri Kasdorp's the one up next to try and take Yuri Toman off the pole position. Again, we can see the reaction of Toman in the bottom right, presently hanging on to pole position. Yuri Kasdorp comes across the line. He's a bit of a shake of the head. Still gets within a tenth of pole position, but only in 6th. We have 6 drivers within that 10. I get the feeling we might well have 3 more if they have tidy laps.
Yeah, I think so, and it's going to be very close around that top 6 mark, but I think Kasdorp might find himself on the wrong side of that throughout qualifying. Jeffrey Rietveld makes his way through the final corners now. He's been strong here in the past, of course, over the course of ESL R1. 4 wins at this venue. Rietveld makes his way over the line, that's a surprise. 8th place for Rietveld, the worst of the clean laps so far.
Yeah, it didn't look particularly tidy in the penultimate or the final corner, so a little messy there. Let's see what Jack Keithley can do. First sector is a long way off where we'd expect it to be. The second sector's okay, but not great. This is not looking like it's going to be an ideal time. I think Jeff Rietveld might be holding the slowest of the clean times for now, but that might not last another couple of seconds as Keithley will come across the line. I think this is only going to be 9th place for Keithley. He'll cross over it 3/10 over the pole. Just one more lap to do. It's your prediction, Ewan. Let's see what Casabon can do.
Yeah, well, he's quite a long way behind the others, but I think that's absolutely fine. I think he just slowed down on the way in towards his lap before beginning because his first sector is okay. We're not being shown the middle sector for the moment, so we'll just have to guess. I think it's going all right for him at the moment, and RHG have got a good chance of getting 3 drivers into the final here. They managed 4 at Spa, of course. Marcel Chinchik not able to join them on this occasion, but with Yuri Toman on pole, he's got a great chance. What about his teammate Thibaut Casabon, who comes round the final corner now? It's over the line for him, a 36-0. He'll have some fighting to do, but he will line up 6th.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the VRS starting grid for semi-final 2. The biggest of big dramas, those see the top 2 that we'd expect from this race. Starting from the rear of the field, Sebastian Job in 12th, Joshua Rogers in 11th. The row ahead of them sees Jack Keithley and Jeffrey Rietveld, the slowest of the clean lap times in the session, before we get Mac Backham in 8th place. 7th place is Yuri Kasdorp, and then into the top 6 that we're progressing through into the final if they hold on to their positions. Thibaut Casabon, race winner yesterday, will start from 6th place. Gaiki Oliveira's got a great record with getting through to the finals, will start from 5th. Eamon Murphy, after a great qualifying lap yesterday and today, will start this one from 4th. Moritz Lerner in 3rd. And then the front row of the grid sees Kevin Siggy starting just alongside Yuri Toman on pole position for RHG, showing that RHG are the team to beat this season. They are the present team's leaders on the team standings, and they are holding that comfortably. It will be looking even more comfortable after another pole position, and maybe even after another victory. Let's see what Toman can do. Brilliant lap time.
It was a great lap time, getting into those 35s, and maybe he's just putting his hat into the ring as well for a round win, because he hasn't done that yet. We know that he's a very consistent driver. This format maybe doesn't suit him as much as others might. If these races were maybe an hour long or longer, then he would really come to the fore. But even in this format, he's been strong. Maybe today is the day he could get that round win. Kevin Siggy alongside him on the front row, of course, but we couldn't have conceived the drama that we just had in qualifying. Sebastian Job and Josh Rogers on the back row. That was possibly, it was very far down my list of things I thought was going to happen there.
I kind of wonder what the drivers from semi-final 1 were kind of like, what, because obviously they're watching this at the moment. They're sat there, having a little look. They're paying close attention to what's happening in semi-final 2 and seeing 2 of the biggest heavy hitters in ESL R1. Both of them having 2 final victories to their name. Both starting from the rear of the field, both potentially being knocked out in the semi-final stage. It's incredible drama, and that's why I love this championship.
Yeah, it just produces twists and turns every step of the way. This is only round 3, of course. We've got more than half of the rounds remaining in this season. We haven't even seen all the tracks that we're going to be visiting over the course of the full season either. It's still got a lot left to give as this ESL R1 full season, and who knows where we're going to go with it next. It's going to be very dramatic indeed. But 10 laps coming up here, semi-final number 2 here at Hockenheim. Absolutely can't wait to get this one started, because we really don't know who's going to be making it here. I mean, it's anyone's guess.
Well, Kevin Siggy could be one. I mean, he'll be looking for a victory here because, you know, Kevin Siggy's not had a particularly great start to the season. He's been frustrated. You know, he's been down the order much more than he would have expected. And they'll be looking for a victory, a long-awaited victory. It's been a while since we've seen him on the top in ESL R1. Well, maybe now is the time. We'll be starting the race once more, and this time it'll be Yuri Toman from pole position. Of course, it's Kevin Siggy alongside as we get ready for semi-final 2. We've already seen plenty of drama. What more will we see? A poor start there from Moritz Lerner, who's going to drop back even behind Kaiki Oliveira as they head their way down towards the first corner. A decent translation on the start from Eamon Murphy, pushed out wide. That'll be Moritz Lerner going out there, and maybe potentially being joined by Thibaut Kazamon, trying to see his teammate Yuri Kasdorp coming through in all of this as well as they funnel their way down to the second corner. Out to the Parabolica. It's a good start from Toman, who's going to continue to hold the race lead, but it's drama in the background for 4.
Yeah, there was a brief free wide moment there with Jack Keithley, who's come out on top in that one. And both the Porsche Coanda boys are back here, of course. Josh Rogers with Mac Backham with work to do. Now there's going to be drama on the way towards the hairpin. We're almost free wide. Yuri Kasdorp and Moritz Lerner sandwiching. And Thibaut Kazamon as it's side by side for the lead at the moment. Yuri Toman trying to hang on to that pole position and the race lead for the moment. But Kevin Siggy is challenging him into turn 8.
Oh my goodness, that is so brave to go around the outside through the fast king. Leaving it there was Kevin Siggy trying to get his way up into the race lead, but it is Yuri Toman leading from Kevin Siggy and then Eamon Murphy, and then literally everyone behind. Moritz Lerner, Kaiki Oliveira and Thibaut Kazamon still hold on to those top 6 positions, but look at how crazy all this is. We focus our attention on Yuri Kasdorp, who's got Jack Keithley right up his rear end. He's trying to get his way inside the top 6 and looking for a final. We know Kasdorp's got the speed. He's now a big fan of Ewan O'Leary, apparently. And that's apparently working his way up the order and keeping him right in contention.
I'm sure those two events are not related, but I think he's, I predicted him to go through from the knockouts, and I was right, and he appreciated it, so we'll take that. I think he's got a chance here as well, by the way, but so has everyone else. It's a really close semi-final, not like the opening one where we saw Jamie Fluke get clear of Isaac Price quite early and then just bring it home. Thibaut Kazamon's not going to have that luxury in 6th place. You wouldn't imagine even Moritz Lerner and Kaiki Oliveira are going to have something to worry about here.
Yeah, look at in the background as well, Mac Backham, who finds himself down in 11th position. His teammate over the rear end of him. This is looking dire for Porsche Coanda, and I get the feeling that we'll not be seeing those two progressing their way through any further in this competition. It's a bit of a tall order to work their way forward. Oh my goodness, Thibaut Kazamon has just absolutely squeezed you off the road, and I'm not going to lie, I think Race Control's going to take a big old look at that.
Well, in the end, the positions didn't change, but that was a questionable moment for the both of them. It could have easily sent them both at the wall. Speaking of which, Yuri Toman and Kevin Siggy are doing their best to manage that right now. Side by side through the really fast turn 7, of course. Now Siggy will come back on the exit of turn 8 for another look at the outside. This is through turn 10 on this occasion. He can't find his way around there, but he's still got his nose alongside. Yuri Toman will just about slot into line, but what a fight we're seeing for the win here. It's bringing everyone into play.
Yeah, the patience that we saw in semi-final 1 is not being seen in semi-final 2, and I kind of get the feeling, I've raced Kevin Siggy a lot over the last 10 years, and I know for a fact he is not a driver that's going to sit in 2nd position and think, oh, I'll take these points. Yeah, I'll take these points. I'll take the position to move through into... No, he wants the victory. He wants to take the point. He wants to remind everyone that Kevin Siggy is one of the drivers to beat as he tries to chase down. You know, every single point for him matters, of course, way more than it does for certain others that have already scored a handful of points. So these are the times when you can move yourself into contention. Of course, the championship leader at the moment, here he is, 9th place. So there's big, although I will say he's up to 9th place. Yeah, there is potential for Sebastian Jobe to still work his way further on in this competition. I'm less so sure about for Josh Rogers, who still finds himself in 12th.
Yeah, and Mac Backham might give that place over, but even so, Josh Rogers is struggling here, I'm afraid, and can't find his way through the order like Sebastian Jobe can. Jack Keithley is going to be next up to be forced to defend, but it's not enough. Sebastian Jobe goes down the inside. and he's into 8th place now. This is fantastic from the two round winners we've had so far. But Sebastian Job is going to be under threat from Jack Keighley again now through turn 7. Side by side they go, and he does have the place with Jeffrey Rebo. Oh no, there's contact. Sebastian Job's recovery is over. He's in the wall and down to 12th.
I think it definitely wasn't intentional, but I think that was almost surely, at least from that angle, 100% on Keighley's shoulders. I don't know for sure though, so again, not going to judge it until we see it from other angles, but it's just my gut feeling would lean a little bit onto those shoulders. Yeah, that's a rough one. Obviously, yeah, there could have just been a little bit of a weird bit with the contact. Who knows? It just looks very awkward. Sebastian Job thought he had it done, and I will say his move at the hairpin was absolutely fantastic. It was bold, it was brave, it was brilliant though. But unfortunately for Sebastian Job, his chances of moving through have completely blown up in his face. And so Joshua Rogers will now find himself in 9th position. And he's now the one that's close to potentially moving his way through. But that gap between Rietveld and Kasdorp, it's a second now.
By the way, I think Keighley agrees with you, Lewis, because I think he gave the place over to Job then. I don't think he got involved in it himself. Did he spin around as well? I'm not sure. I think he just slowed down to give that one up, but not entirely sure, to be honest, till we've got all the evidence. Josh Rogers is going to need some late resurgence here, I'm afraid. I say that, it's only lap 4, considering the drama we've had so far. Rogers now on the back of Jeffrey Rietveld, 2 drivers you wouldn't expect to see in the bottom half of this field, but they are. Rietveld defends from Rogers, and quite forcefully as well, but this is only for 8th, the 6th place. The magic 6th place is quite a long way away from them at the moment.
Yeah, Rietveld could actually do a good job here of playing a bit of a team game. Yes, sure, Rietveld will want to progress himself, but if he defends from Rogers as hard as he can, he's going to delay Rogers and may stop Rogers from going through into the final, and that'll be big for his team. Bit of a squeeze there as Rietveld leaves the Mercedes arena section straight around the outside from Joshua Rogers. He's got to do the outside here, got to do the outside at Mobil 1. Look at how calm Joshua Rogers is, though, in the left side of your screen, straight around the outside of Mobil 1. Could that be move of the day? Oh, I think it's up there for it. That is brilliant. Perfect racing between the pair of them. Space given, absolutely excellent, and it's still not done as we leave the Sachs curve.
That was special from Joshua Rogers around the outside of the Mobil 1 curve. The fastest corner on this circuit, or one of them anyway. It's a wonderful move, and Rogers is up to 8th place. He's still got work to do here, which is the annoying thing for him, but he can be pleased with that overtake. It's at least a couple of points to his name, and Jeffrey Rieveld's going to have to pick himself up from this, because there's another Porsche Coanda driver right behind him in the form of Mac Backen, although these guys are still far away from that battle for 6th. Maybe Rieveld won't be looking over his shoulder. He is still fairly close to Rogers as they make their way out of 2 and 3 and onto the back straight.
Yeah, let's see if it's more about, like I say, the gap between Rogers and between Kasdorp right now. It currently sits at 1.4 seconds. Take a screenshot of that, and let's lock that one into the memory bank. Let's see if Jeffrey Rieveld's going to go for a move straight away. He's going to look down the inside. He's not going to commit to a move, though. To be fair, that was fairly trusting of Rogers to think Rieveld's going to look, but he's not going to go for it, and just committed to the racing line. Of course, again, the racing line's going to be the fastest one. If you're defending, you're losing even more time to that grouping up ahead. Maybe that's what Rietveld was trying to make Rogers do, but at the moment, like I said, I mean, if I were to look at this now and be like, right, over a 5-lap stint, do I think Josh Rogers could close a second and a half down to Yuri Kasdorp? And generally, I would actually say, yeah, potentially. But realistically, at this point, I'm not so sure. I just don't believe so. I think Rogers would have had to have taken quite a bit out of his tyres. They might be overpressured and overheating at the moment, and that is a big gap to make up to a driver who not only has clear speed around the Hockenheim ring, but also a bit of slipstream as well, which will just help him all the way around the Parabolica.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. Let's have a look at the incident again of Sebastian Job. Yeah, I think you're right in your initial observation there that Keighley is possibly at fault for that one. And yeah, this is the angle that we want to look at. Yeah, so he's trying to find a space down the outside there, couldn't quite, and actually did get spun around himself. I think Jeffrey Rietveld was an innocent party in that one, really. But yeah, unfortunately, Keighley might land himself in trouble for that, even though it actually put him down to last himself.
Yeah, I mean, so there will be an argument which could be levied towards Sebastian Job that he was moving in the braking zone or whatever, but that for me actually doesn't. Frequently, I'd be like, yeah, of course he was moving in the braking zone, but in that corner, no, because your braking zone it's kind of diagonal into it, because you come through the fast kink and you're kind of on the brakes diagonally across, and that's the line you have to expect to take. Keith looked like he was a bit too late on his brakes and wasn't prepared for that to happen. Sebastian Job had the move done. For me, that is on Keithley's shoulders. But again, race control may see it differently, they may see it exactly the same. And to be perfectly honest, I think Sebastian Job at that point doesn't really care anymore because, well, there's nothing that's going to change that's going to affect that in a positive way for him. Or even in a further negative way for Jack Keithley. It's kind of like, it's one of those things, it's tough now, it's happened. It is what it is.
And yeah, as you say, even a penalty for Keithley is not going to change Job's situation at this stage, which is really what I would describe as miracle needing, if that's a phrase, because he's down 11th and a long way away from this position, which is where Timo Kazemon finds himself in the top half. Yuri Kastrup is not quite as threatening on the back of Kazemon as I was expecting at this stage in the race. I've got to say, 6 laps done now, and he's not quite looking like he's going to make a move anytime soon, and he does need to.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's hard to race around here. And one thing that, yeah, if you were listening to the build-up when we were in the countdown, there was a little bit of a clip from Kevin Ellis Jr. and he was saying about his race win in the knockouts yesterday. Of course, he's already out of the competition, but his race win yesterday, where he was basically describing it as how he was going to play it was he kept half a second of a gap. He was always making sure there was half a second of a gap. That was the magic number. And look at all the gaps on the left-hand side. Half a second between Yuri Toman and Kevin Siggy. Half a second between Eamon Murphy and Moritz Lerner. Half a second between Kaki Oliveira and Timo Kazemon. And then half a second back to Yuri Kazemon. That's kind of like the magic number you want to keep around if you're going to defend the position without having to look in the mirrors. And that's exactly what they're doing. It just means that if everyone's kind of doing that, it's actually very hard to break any further into it. You might go, well, surely why wouldn't you pull out any further a gap? Well, to do so, you would have to take risk to do so, and sometimes that's just not worth it when you know half a second is safe.
Yep, and the points at the moment are not quite worth it either. Maybe for the final we're going to see something a little bit more extravagant from someone, but for now everyone's staying where they are inside the top 6. And a great drive, by the way, from Kaki Oliveira, who I really want to highlight a little bit here. He's in 5th place for Furia, the only Furia representative in the semi-finals. He looks like he's going to take them all the way to the final. And Eamon Murphy is impressing me right now as well, I've got to say, in 3rd place. Another good qualifying session from him in what's proved to be a bit of a surprise. Certainly for me, I didn't think he'd do quite as well in this round, but he's really impressing, and he's not only just making it into the final, he's comfortably making it as things stand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Eamon Murphy's got a lot of fans. Clearly, that's not his only fan, because Ewan O'Leary is now a fan of Eamon Murphy. So am I. I've always got to love a bit of Eamon Murphy. But at the moment, he is keeping cool in the race. A second off of Kevin Siggy, which would be a little bit of a disappointment, but surely he'll be inside the finals, and maybe he'll be competing in that. There has been a mistake from Timo Kazemon, though, because Yuri Kastrup has found his way inside that top 6.
Well, what on earth went on there? It's a mistake from Kazemon. Kastrup is there, and now Josh Rogers is there all over again as well. Jeffrey Rittenberg wasn't able to hold on to the pace, by the way, for Team Redline, unfortunately, but Kazemon now with work to do. Kastrup's going to be on the defensive, and this is going to be a breathless last 2 laps.
Yuri Kastrup, to my knowledge, has only made the final twice. It was actually in the final stages of last season, including the final round of last season, of the spring season, which actually was here. Ended up 10th position in the final in that, so this could be very impressive for Yuri Kastrup to get into his first final of the season. Obviously just showing that basically everyone is capable of doing it. Yeah, you get drivers that struggle all the way through the spring season and then suddenly find themselves popping up into the finals. Maybe struggling a little bit to the start of this. We saw Yuri Kastrup being absolutely fantastic, particularly in the drivers' competition at Gamers 8, because there was a lot of struggles on the team side, or one side. I think it was the struggles on the team side, but he actually was pretty good in the driver's side of it, getting through into the Friday, if memory serves. But again, I am an idiot, so don't trust anything I say.
Are you trying to be friends with him as well? Sounds like it.
Are you saying I'm not friends with Yuri Kastrup? I've known him for a long time.
I know, you're more friends than I am. Anyway, he's 6th for now, and for whatever reason, Kazemon, after that mistake, has fallen apart a little bit here. He's now not only holding that half a second margin you were talking about earlier, but now has dropped back to 6/10, and it's going to have to be a very special penultimate lap for him to even get close enough.
Do you know what I think it is? Tyres. I kind of thought this yesterday. There was a couple of drivers that I was looking at yesterday in the knockouts, particularly in knockout 4, because Kazamon started out the race quite strong and then kind of dropped back into the clutch behind. And I did say, I think it was with Kazamon anyway. I did say that I was a little concerned with a couple of the drivers' tyres, and I think that's what we're seeing here. It's not, again, it's not really like where is a percentage. It's more about, you know, how they are in temperature-wise, you know, whether they're thermally degrading, and the fact that they're now, you know, the hotter they get, the more pressured they get, which means the hotter they get, which means the higher the pressure goes, etc., etc., etc. It's a very vicious cycle, and I think that could be where Kazamon is. He might have been able to settle it down and go for a bit of second wind in this, but it's not looking so great.
He's a little bit far away at the moment. Kazamon became, by the way, the 27th driver in ESL R1 history to win a race yesterday by taking this knockout round. But at the moment, only one knockout round winner is going to be taking a place in the final as well. Kazamon and Rogers both got into this semi-final by winning their knockout heats yesterday, but they're not there at the moment. And Kevin Lewis Jr. didn't make it in semi-final 1 either, so it's not looking good for the knockout round winners at all. A bit of a hand-up of frustration from Kazamon there as he made his way out of turn 1. Not sure what it was about, but he's not close enough here against Castop, I wouldn't imagine.
I think that's what it was about. He's huffing and puffing because he wasn't close enough to go for a move, and he knows that he didn't nail the sector to the exact precision that he required. And unfortunately for Kazamon, it doesn't look like it's going to be the position. Eamon Murphy also struggling with tyres, and Kazamon's gone round right ahead of Joshua Rogers, and Kazamon will drop his way now to 8th.
Well, that's a disaster for Kazamon. It was looking unlikely anyway, but it's surely certain now. Jeffrey Rebound is even going to fancy his chances. There's going to be a defence from Kazamon. Rebound will head to the outside, he'll get into the back of the Audi as well. Can't find his way through. Thibaut Kazamon will be a disappointed man at the end of this.
Certainly so. Well, they head into the final sector for the final time in semi-final 2. And for RAG, a bit of disappointment that Thibaut Kazamon's not going to be joining his teammates Yuri Toman and Erhan Yovsky moving through to the final here at the Hockenheim ring. But for Yuri Toman, it has been a perfect drive. Had to deal with a lot of pressure in the opening stages from Kevin Siggy, who was all over the rear end. Dealt with that brilliantly. And Yuri Toman will come through the final corner to take yet another victory in ESL R1. It's semi-final 2 going the way of the Czech driver. Across the line, half a second clear of Kevin Siggy. Eamon Murphy onto the podium as well. Moritz Lerner, Gagi Oliveira and Yuri Kausdorp look to secure themselves positions into the finals as well. But Yuri Toman took that pole position in a frantic qualifying session, it has to be said. Dealt with the drama well and takes victory again for RAG.
Fantastic drive from Yuri Toman, and that's his third win, by the way, in ESL R1 history. The first time he's ever done it at Hockenheim, and he'll be very pleased with that. He's into the final. I think he's got a great chance, and RAG have got a great chance as well, haven't they? They've really shown themselves well in these semi-finals.
I mean, RAG have been unbelievable when it comes to their strength. It's a bit of disappointment, to have 2 drivers out from the final. But when you're getting 2 drivers into the final and you're disappointed with that, it just shows the strength of the team. I was saying a bit earlier, by the way, about the points situation when it comes to the team standings. Which, of course, the teams championship is only on for the run and the online season. We don't take that into Sweden. It's just for the online season. Coming into this evening after the knockouts as well. RAG were on 430 points. Their next closest rival was Williams, who were on 290. They had a 140-point lead after 2 rounds.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, you'd expect that, though, wouldn't you? After seeing Spa and seeing they've got 4 in there, you think, well, of course they're going to have the lead. But those teams' championship standings for me are a little bit wonky at the moment. I think there's some of that still got to adjust. But they've got a great chance of winning that team championship, and they really came at Redline very strong towards the spring season. So I thought, that they've got a great chance here at doing it in the fall season, and why not?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, it always feels really brutal talking about the big hype that is RAG this season, because it's kind of like everyone's just kind of like, yeah, it's great for Thibaut, it's great for Thibaut. But then you're like, oh, what happened to Risto? Sorry about that. Anyway, we will just step aside for, well, not for a second, because we're going to catch up with Maximilian Benneker, who was obviously in semi-final 1, not semi-final 2. And hopefully we can have a couple of words with him about his thoughts of semi-final 2, and, of course, how he went in his race, and a little bit of what happened at Spa. So, Max, I don't know if you can hear me, if you're there. We'll have a little
I can. Hello.
Oh, goodness me. Thank you. Great. Brilliant. Let's talk about your semi-final very quickly. A solid run through there. You looked a little bit calm, a little bit maybe restrained in that race.
I mean, once you're in P2, it's kind of hard to get to P1 if you don't have a perfect turn one, right? So I tried my best, obviously, to get the gap down, but in the end, there's no reason to risk anything because I want to be in the final, right? So yeah, solid race, I guess. So yeah, looking forward to the final now.
Now, we've got to talk about it, the big stuff of what happened last round as well. I kind of want to talk more about where your mentality is after that. Of course, you've had a couple of rounds where you've had penalties. Of course, you've disagreed with them. We've all seen it kind of on Twitter and stuff like that. And that's fair enough. That happens as a driver. But how do you kind of come back into the next round and kind of reset yourself and go, look, do you know what it is? What it is? I've got to focus on winning this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, I'm angry at that moment, but then I focus on the next race, and to me, it doesn't change the way I drive. It doesn't change the way I prepare. So it doesn't really matter to me. It's obviously upsetting because I think all the decisions against me were completely wrong. So it's a bit unfortunate. Again today, got swapped to P3 for absolutely nothing. So yeah, I hope we can get that sorted out soon. But to me, mentality-wise, it doesn't do anything. I'm just gonna try to perform as best as I can, and yeah, one simple decision doesn't change that.
Do you actively think about it during the race at all?
No. In the race, I'm very focused, very much in the tunnel, try to just nail my laps, and that's basically it. So there's no way you can think about race control, probably handing you out a penalty for nothing. I'm just racing to what I think is fair, and I think yeah, in most of the races I do, I'm one of the fairest drivers on the grid. So yeah, let's see.
Now, I'll ask you just one last question before I let you go and get prepared for that final. We just saw quite a lot of drama in the previous race. I don't know if you were watching it. I'm sure you're keeping a little bit of an eye on it. Sebastian Job, Josh Rogers having issues in qualifying. When you kind of see those things happen, how does that make you feel going into the final? Obviously, you're kind of watching it from the outside and there's no control over what happens in semi-final two, but you're still keeping a close eye on
it. Yeah, sure, but to be honest, this field is so stacked, and with Hockenheim being so random as it is, especially with turn one, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to me in the final now, and like whoever is a bit more lucky, I would say, on his lap is going to be ahead, right? So the field is so stacked. I wouldn't even say that there's like it's about one or two people, right? So yeah, unlucky that it hit both, obviously, but I mean, I don't want to jinx it. It can happen to me as well now in like 10 minutes. So it is what it is.
Well, Max, our Gamers 8 Drivers Champion, and of course, round winner in ESL R1 in the spring season. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you a little bit later on.
Hopefully. Let's see.
Cool.
Thank you.
Fascinating to hear from Max there, Lewis. What did you take from that? Was he in the kind of mindset and the frame of mind that you expected after what happened last week at Spa?
Do you know what? I've commentated and I've known Max for a while. I'm not surprised that he's not changed his mentality. He knows what he can do as a driver. He knows where he stands as a driver, and he's got that full belief in himself, and that's worked for him over his esports career. So fair enough. There's been a couple of questions from some drivers towards race control and stuff, which was dealt with quite a bit over at Gamers 8 and carrying on to the season. It is what it is at the end of the day, but I quite like the mentality of, do you know what? I'm not thinking about it. I'm getting in the car and I'm getting on with it. I don't care.
Yeah, if I know race drivers, they complain about two things: race directors' decisions and balance of power. Bop. They're the two top of the tree. But let's talk about something less positive. Sebastian Job, my. Slow down in quali, puts him at the back and involved in a huge crash with Jack Keithley. What, how did that all unfold?
Yeah, just a bit of a shame. Obviously, getting the race start underway from the back of the field and a bit of side by side with Josh Rogers is, I think Sebastian Job was expecting to go side by side with Rogers at some point in this race. I don't think he was expecting it to be 11th and 12th place. But it's not the fact that one of them got a slow down penalty that was a shock. It's the fact that both of them did. Two of the proper front runners in this, and then this is an incident here. Obviously, we saw it from up above as well. Just a misjudgment from Keithley. Big shame there for Keithley, but it is what it is.
I mean, I was expecting, those two, so Sebastian and Josh. I would have expected them to be at the front of the field, side by side, as you said, not at the back, because Josh had an equally poor time, didn't he? He was down after a slowdown, and then he didn't quite make it back. I thought he was going to for a moment, but then couldn't quite get back to P6 and make his way to the final, could he?
No, unless he's been extremely fortuitous with a call from race control, which I am keeping an eye on. We've not got any official confirmation yet as to the finalised results from semi-final 2. Once we do, we'll let you know, and we'll just double check again as to the 6 drivers that will be moving their way through into the finals from semi-final 2. I mean, like I say, when you start, I get the feeling in ESL R1, if you're a driver, even if you're the fastest driver on the planet and you're starting from the back of the grid, I think you kind of accept that that's day done when it comes to the potential of moving through into the final. You just kind of have to. Obviously there'll be that, you've got to keep positive mental attitude and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I'm just sort of sat there being like, let's just go out there and get what we can get. If it is a final, great. If it's not, I'm already set with that.
Yeah, I think when, going back to semi-final 1, when the field is separated by 0.2 of a second, essentially, bar Marcel, who got I think it was Marcel Sinchik, got a slowdown in semi-final 1, qualification is so important. You're basically done for, aren't you, if you don't get a decent quali in. But take us through the result quickly of semi-final 2, if you would, Lewis.
Yeah, of course. The big caveat is that it's provisional. Yuri Toman, Kevin Siggy and Eamon Murphy, those on the podium from semi-final 2, with Moritz Lerner, Kaki Oliveira and Yuri Kasdorp being those that will potentially progress through into the final. I actually don't see anything changing in that, but still, there is, you never know when it comes to things behind the scenes. Josh Rogers missing out by just a single position. I think he did a really good job to recover, but just 6 points from the semi-final will be very disappointing. Thibaut Casabon, Jeff Rietveld, Mac Backham, and then, of course, after that incident we saw there, Sebastian Jobe and Jack Keithley, the back of the field. Obviously there was a couple of things that Ewan was saying about, with Kaki Oliveira, his consistency with getting through into the finals is actually very good. His top 6 percentage is really high.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic for them. But I'm excited to see what the final has in store, because that semi-final, if it's anything like that, it was a reasonably tame first semi-final. Second semi-final was absolute chaos. So let's see what the final has in store. But let's talk about James Baldwin. Now that the dust has settled on these semi-finals, we said we were going to talk about him earlier. So let's have a chat about him. How crazy is it that we might not, with the way that things are going for James, I mean, we may not see him in the final. It's incredible, right?
Yeah, of course, the final you're alluding to there is Sweden, is Jönköping, which I don't know I'm saying correctly. That's just a wild guess from what I've heard from other people say it. So we're just not going to commit to that. But he's a fantastic driver. Yes, he's on the outside looking in right now, but when you've got a driver of that kind of quality, they've been in this kind of position before where the back's been against the wall and still managed to work their way through. Look at last season. There was quite a few rounds where he didn't get out of the quarterfinals last season. I think there'll be a few panic stations, but nothing over the line.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll see what he's got to say in a moment. I think we're ready for James actually right now. So let's see if James is there. James, are you there?
Hello.
There he is.
I'm here.
How are you, my friend? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you two?
I'm all good, thank you. I'm all good. What did you make of that last semi-final race?
Well, it was pretty good to watch. Pretty chaotic. Good to see my good mate Murphy get on the podium, get to the final. I think that's the first time he's made the final. So good for him. And it was a decent race.
And speaking of, I was just going to say decent races. We've got a little clip from, I believe it's your stream from round 2 previously. I'm glad to hear that you're in better spirits, or see that you're in better spirits now. But let's just quickly take a look at that. And I'd be interested to hear your reaction and see your reaction to that. So let's have a look now.
If you don't nail it, you get punished in this series, more so than any other series I think out there. So start the race. Let's see how this goes. So P6, it's still good enough to get through into the semi-final. Bear in mind, this is the quarter-final, so we just need to be in the top 6. Breaking nice and late into turn 1 just so we don't get tagged from any cars on the inside. Still P6, behind the Audi and the Mercedes. I'm being nice and cautious. I just want to get through. And you can see here, the Merc squeezes the Audi. An explosion took place off the wall and straight into me. And you can see there I was not happy. I may have said 1 or 2 swear words, and that was me not out, but at the back. And that does basically mean you're out.
One long, angry line later.
What is the point, having a worse start than last season?
don't know what to say really. Obviously, I'm out, not through to tomorrow. Don't really particularly want to discuss it. I'm not even that upset. It's just annoying. Like the amount of hours we put into this, man. It's many hours per day of your life, the valuable thing we call life, putting into it, and for some instant like that, like it just makes you think, what is the point? You know?
Wow. Wow. Things got real deep there, didn't they, James? What did you?
That pretty much sums up my season so far. Yeah, I mean, that was round 2 a couple of weeks ago. It's not really improved since then. Obviously, round 3 yesterday and today, and I invalidated my first quali run in the quarterfinal. Like a lot of drivers have been doing at turn 1. It's like completely 50-50 whether you cut it or not. As Max sort of alluded to, and when he was talking there, he said it's sort of luck. The window for doing a valid lap and an invalid lap is so like fine. You need like a bit of luck on your side to even get through that corner without getting a penalty. So, yeah.
How were you after? How were you after yesterday? Obviously, things didn't go well then. Did things get as deep as they did at round 2, or were you kind of a bit more prepared for it?
Yeah, that's right. I'm getting used to it now. So, to be fair, round 2 was like, it was an incident where obviously you saw the Mercedes squeeze the Audi into the wall, and then the Audi exploded off the wall into my car, and there's nothing I could have done. So like, that's really annoying because, I was destined for that moment. Like, it was never going to not be that way. Whereas yesterday, when it's my fault, I cut turn 1, that's my fault. So, it's not just me that's doing it. There's loads of drivers doing it, but still I need to do a better job to ensure that I maybe leave a bit more margin going through turn 1 so I don't cut it. Pretty standard stuff, really. I mean, it was a real bad day for our team, to be honest. It was, none of us made it through. So we need to all do better, basically. But we had a really bad start in season 1, and we ended pretty strong. I mean, I was like 2 corners away from winning it. So you don't need a strong start, but it helps. So it's annoying that I've got another bad one to try and come back from. But
yeah, I mean, you had a bad one last season, didn't you? But let's have a look. And I don't want to do this to you, but I've got to do this to you. Let's have a look at the difference between you and Seb Job at the moment. But Sebastian Job, to be fair, he hasn't. He didn't have a great time last time out. So it can happen to anyone. But how do you kind of? How does it feel looking at that, really? I mean, is it like motivation? Is it frustration? What's the plan to kind of recover this like you did last season?
It's just frustration. There's no motivation looking at that. I mean, it's got my favourite number there, number 28. So that's a good number to have. It's just really low. So 150 points basically behind the leader it's a lot. It is a lot. It wasn't part of my plan, but you can't think about it really. You just got to take each round as it comes and not invalidate quali laps and just put yourself in the top 6, get through to finals, like stuff I should be doing anyway, but it's just not worked out. So yeah, a mixture of bad luck, bad delivery from me, bad preparation, I guess, from us as a team, because we haven't got the outright pace. So when you don't have the outright pace, you have to push a bit more and you take more risk, you get a penalty in your quali lap. So it's just been a disaster, but we'll get there hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, we've got a resident expert, Lewis. I mean, I'm sure you can give James lots of pointers how to drive quicker. What have you got for him here? How can you help him out of this hole that he finds himself in?
The only thing I'm going to say is I'm going to be at least in good company with those that have exceeded T1 around here. Because it's Marcel Cicic, Sebastian Job, Josh Rogers, and you. So, just dated it a bit later in the competition. Obviously, looking at how things were, last season, obviously, you say you got off to a bad start. It was a semi-final. You got knocked out in Spa, which is obviously when we were racing in Katowice. Then you got into the final at Hockenheimring, and then knocked out in a couple of quarters. Knocked out in the quarter in the in Spa as well. This is actually kind of like a thing that we've seen from quite a lot of drivers because ESL R1 is so competitive, right? So you're kind of moving forward. It's just about keeping that positive mental attitude, isn't it? It's so brutal in this. But I kind of wonder, are you kind of like maybe switching up how you're going to approach next round, maybe like as in switching up which quarter final you're going to be in, which of the knockouts you're going to be in, maybe just try and spice things up a bit?
Yeah, I think you got to change things. You can't keep doing the same thing and then getting bad results. I mean, that is literally the definition of insanity, isn't it? But yeah, I've never. I don't know why. I don't do it consciously, but any series I do, I never start very strong. It's really weird. I don't know what it is. Like I had it with ACC and other games as well. Like I never start strong, but I start to pick it up mid-season and towards the end. So I've got that going for me, hopefully. But yeah, we're definitely changing stuff in our prep, to try and figure out why we're just like, it's not much. It's like half a tenth, maybe a tenth. We're off like what we should be doing. But on this grid, it's all relative, and you've seen, a tenth or 2 tenths can split P1 from P12. You need every thousandth going for you, really, which we don't have. So, yeah, it's a dull situation for us. Don't get me wrong, but we're all quite mature. We're probably one of the oldest teams on the grid, actually. So we've all sort of been through this sort of thing before. So I'm confident we'll get pretty strong come the end of the season, hopefully with some decent points.
And that was going to be, sorry, Lewis, to jump in. That was going to be my question as we look at the team championship here. How are the rest of the guys? How are the rest of the guys? How are things, once all the dust settles on, or all the dust settled really on yesterday, how are the guys? Can you let us know how they're feeling about everything?
Not great. Yeah, it's just not good. Like when none of you are like delivering, or none of you are like as quick as you want to be, or you're all like struggling to get points and stuff. It's a bit depressing. Like I'm not going to wrap it up. It is just it's not great. But as I say, we went through it last season. We came good at the end. We finished 5th in the constructors. We know we can do it. It's just like we need to figure out why we're not being able to do it this year. I mean, there's been some changes since season 1. It looks like the same cars and the same tracks, but like there's different setups on the cars now, so the cars feel different. The game's obviously been updated in a few areas, so it does feel and look and sound a bit different. Small changes, but for whatever reason, those changes, either we've stood still and people have got better, or we've got worse. So yeah, we need to figure it out.
Have you changed your guys' approach as a team or anything? Or is it just a case of, right, trust the process, keep doing what we're doing? Or are there things that you've tweaked to try and sort of change the wins around here for Mercedes?
Yeah, and there's not too much you can do because there's no open setups. It's all fixed. The main thing you would try and do is work on the setup, but you try and look at other areas like the wheelbase I'm using, or the pedals, or the settings I'm using on those bits of equipment, or maybe I'm over practicing. Maybe I'm putting too many hours in and burning my brain out. Maybe I'm doing not enough. Maybe, there's so many things you can look at this level when everyone's sort of pro. Yeah, you have to really delve into every detail and try and perfect everything, which clearly we're not doing at the minute because we're doing rubbish. So hopefully we can figure it out.
Well, everybody loves a comeback, James, and the font on the back of your chair, while it says James, is world's fastest gamer. So, you've got the pedigree, mate. So I'm sure if anyone can do it, I'm sure you and the guys can. But we appreciate your time. Sorry, we're talking to you under these circumstances. I'm sure you'd much rather, be racing in the final. But yeah, we'll all have our fingers crossed for you for the remainder of the season. Thanks for your time, James.
Nah, pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Oh, well, there we go. We're just about ready, actually, for the final. We've got the lineup for the final that we can look at in a moment. Lewis, how did you feel James was there? Oh, actually, no, we've got the lineup there. Let's run through that before we talk about James.
Well, I mean, it's like I say, it's pretty impressive seeing Dara McCormack now being the driver who looks to take over the lead of the championship. Yuri Toman fresh after his victory in the previous one as well. Second on there, Erhan Yovsky in third. Maximilian Benneker. Could this be the time that he takes a victory? I'd almost back Benneker a little bit in this. Luke Bennett, obviously, with a couple of wins, the only driver to have won in the knockouts and in the semi-finals. Dane Warren, Kevin Siggy, Kaiki Oliveira, Moritz Lerner, Eamon Murphy. I will just correct James Baldwin. I feel bad doing it. He said it might be Eamon's first final. It's not true. He's been in 2 before. He's finished 9th in both of them, so could well be on a decent improvement streak from that, especially with his qualifying round here. Jamie Fluke and Yuri Kazdorp round out our drivers. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think, well, these all are, as we said, but 2 big names missing that I would have expected to see in there. But let's just go back to James quickly. How does he seem to you? Obviously, we saw it was one of his videos, obviously, it got pretty deep for him. So obviously he feels he feels real bad about where he is at the moment, despite, having the faith, or the experience that he had last season. But what do you read into James's demeanour at the moment?
I mean, look, he seems a little dejected. Of course, you kind of would be when you've only been knocked out of it yesterday. And like he said, through kind of like a mistake kind of his own just at T1. But I think there is that positiveness inside. I mean, I've known James for a while. I've watched him race for a very, very long time. I know the kind of driver he is. He knows the kind of driver he is. I don't think there's any doubt that he will be going to Sweden. Right now, I think if we get to round 6 of the season and we're currently in, we're still in the same mindset, then yeah, fair enough. But it's just about hitting that reset, kind of treating the season in 2 halves. And obviously we're not even halfway through the season yet, so two halves, one slightly larger than the other, and just reset yourself around 4, and then just do the next 5 rounds, winning all of them. How hard can it be?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And, we're only talking about it because expectations for James are just so high. As I said, previous world fastest gamer, I think he's going to be okay. But let's have a look at the final. You've got a head-to-head that we want to look at. Tell us about these two and why you chose these 2 drivers in particular.
I mean, look, I think Siggy, the thing is, I've picked these 2 because I know they're quite aggressive. Mostly on the fact of, they've both been under the eye of race control at various times, and obviously they're not going to change their driving style for nothing. But they're 2 drivers that I kind of get the feeling of all of the drivers on the grid, if they're the ones sat in second, they're going to be the ones taking the absolute most risk to go after that race victory. You can see their top 6 percentages is almost exactly the same. Their podium rate is obviously more in favour of Maximilian Benneker. It just kind of shows like the consistency and the speed they've had throughout the seasons. They've gone off to a mixed start, is how I'll put it, to the season that we've had. Both of them have had 1 final appearance. One of them went slightly better than the other, but then had removed. Obviously, that one being Benneker, who was in first and then got dropped down to 8th. Their final positions are actually quite similar. They're fairly similar, in my opinion, in driving style, but I don't know. Genuinely, I'm sort of sat there looking at this. I'm thinking that these 2 will be the ones that we might be looking for a victory this evening.
Even with Mr. McCormack in the frame?
Even with Mr. McCormack in the frame.
Okay.
Do you like
of
myself,
those,
then,
of those, then, I mean, I'm going to pick. So let's talk about actually predictions for this. So I'm going to go. My head is saying Benneker, but my heart is saying Kevin Siggy. We went through a lot in Saudi. We had a lot of difficult conversations, me and Kevin, in Saudi Arabia. So it was really good to see him back in the finals again. Really, really good. So yeah, head says Benneker, but my heart says Siggy. So I'm going to go with Siggy on that one. What about yourself? Who have you got for the final?
I'm going to go with Dara McCormack. No, I'm joking. Of course, McCormack is definitely one that's going to be up there. But I'll go in the same vein. I'll take the other one from that head-to-head. I'm going to go with Benneker. I think he was disappointed last time to have had that race win taken away from him. I think he bounces back to an immediate race victory.
Okay, that's interesting. And Ewan, we've left you with 10 other scraps for you to pick from. I'm not going to let you forget that one. Who have you got for this one?
It's it's not scraps, but yeah, I'm not going to go for Yuri Kazdorp, by the way. I know everyone's expecting me to, but instead I will. Since you're going to leave him free for me to choose, I'm going to go for Max Benneker. To be honest, I think this is one of the.
I went Max Benneker.
Oh, did you? I thought you said Darren McCormack.
Yeah, no, I bailed from the McCormack. I'm sticking with Benneker.
Okay. Sorry. Well, I do think Benneker will win, but I'll have to pick someone else. I guess I'll go for Tobin because since he took that second semi-final, maybe he can carry that form on forwards. But yeah, I think this is one of the most wide-open finals we've seen for quite some time, actually. I think sometimes it can be a little bit not obvious who's going to win, but you can generally tell who's going to be up there. And I think that was the case a couple of weeks ago. You knew that Sebastian Job was going to be up there, and in the end, it was a difficult fight for him, of course, and he didn't even win on the road. But he did take the round win eventually. I think that's a different situation here. We're going to see a big fight for this win tonight.
Well, gentlemen, the scene has been set with 2 great semi-finals. Well, one okay semi-final and one fantastic semi-final. So I don't think there's much else to do other than to hand over to you guys. Don't mess it up because this is shaping up to be a fantastic final.
Yeah, important business and a lot on the line. Round 3 of the ESL R1 full season here at the Hockenheim Ring, and it's very good to be along with you once again. I'm very much looking forward to this. 10 more laps to settle who is going to be the round 3 winner. It's not going to be a hat-trick for Sebastian Job. He was knocked out in semi-final number 2, but we do have a perfect selection of 12, as you can see on your screen. Darren McCormack has the most points of all of them, and as you can see, most of the top 10 are here, bar a few here and there. It's a great lineup, and we've only spoken about 3 who could possibly win, 3 or 4, but you know, anyone realistically, we say it time and time again, anyone can realistically win.
Yeah, certainly so. Of course, one of the other stats we were kind of talking about coming into this was how Darren McCormack had finished on the podium in every race in ESL R1 in the full season. That ended earlier as he finished in 5th place in the semi-final one. So, you know, that one's over. But maybe there is a victory on the horizon. Of course, he has won round here before. So, you know, maybe there's precedent of another one on the horizon. We'll have to wait and see. Yujovski maybe winning first final as a married man. Yeah, maybe it's his time to take top honours. But yes, I think Benneke might be. If Yuri Toman wins it, I'll be fuming. Only because I kind of stole Benneke right out of your mouth. And
yeah, only because I picked him. You'll be furious.
That is to be fair. No, that is it. I'll just be fuming because you won. Yeah.
Well, you got the pleasure of having Luke Bennett earlier and taking that win, so we've got to give and take. Moritz Lerner will be up against Erhan Yoski, as you can see here, and they'll be doing battle over the course of today. 2 Audi drivers, of course, who was fairly through the middle, if you like, through their semi-finals. We'll need to pick it up maybe for a final win here. Would you say that it would be a somewhat surprise for either of these two to win here?
I don't know. I mean, Moritz Lerner, I mean, to be fair for both, this is the kind of thing when you're looking at this. I wouldn't be shocked, genuinely, I wouldn't be shocked if anyone won. And that is not me being coy or anything. I just wouldn't be surprised because everyone is so strong. Everyone has the capability of winning. Yes, you might look at those points and think, oh, maybe Erhan Yujovski is kind of like, he's a driver that's more used to assisting Yuri Toman or Mars. That's not true. Erhan Yujovski is a 2-time GT Pro champion. You know, he's won countless things elsewhere in the world of sim racing, and he has won multiple races in ESL R1, including race 6 at the Spring Major, which was obviously the big dramatic one when Marcel Cinchik and James Baldwin hit each other off going through the chicane.
Yes, he was involved there. The 2 BMW drivers who will be doing battle as well will be Kaki Oliveira and Eamon Murphy. 2 drivers who've really impressed me here. And I know you said there that it's not a surprise to see anybody in one of these finals. It wouldn't even be a surprise for any of them to win. But you've got to, you know, clap your hands when these guys do well, because it's still a good achievement, and especially for the likes of Murphy, did need a finer performance a little bit to get himself in that top 24, which he wasn't in at the start of this round.
Yeah, and of course, as I've said before, Eamon Murphy has it's his first final of the season. His best finish in a final is 9th. Kaki Oliveira's best finish in a final was 7th. That was last season. Has been in a final this season. That was just in the previous round. Of course, there you go. You can see the different setups, shall we say, from the pair of them. One looks slightly more professional than the other. I do, by the way, I'm going to show this on camera now, only because I'm still looking for more sim racing merch. But I do also have. I've got an Eamon Murphy T-shirt on me, by the way, in support of Eamon Murphy. I don't know if Eamon Murphy is going to be the person that's going to win, but I do have an Eamon Murphy T-shirt. Look,
there we go.
It's got his name on it. It's Eamon Murphy's T-shirt. He didn't sign it, but it's fine. I do have one. Do you know what else I have, Ewan? I've got beta keys, mate. I've got a beta key. Check that out.
Oh, there we go. Let's zoom out a bit because you can't see. Hang on.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Thank you. I've got beta keys.
You forcing the people to guess what the first 2 letters are? Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
It was. Just forced 50 yes. And while we're at it, yeah, exactly. While we're at it, I've got one as well. So here you are. Oh dear. Let's focus in. There we are. Oh, the handwriting.
See, now you're doing it.
Really. Yeah, there we are. There's your code. There's your code. So get that in the Epic Games Store, and you'll be able to have a go on the Rennsport Open Beta, of course. So very much look forward to that. But new content, of course, announced here this evening as well, in the form of a Porsche Cup car and a new competition as well. You can go check out. So make sure you go to the Rennsport app and all the relevant places, like the Rennsport game itself. If you've got one of these beta keys, you can have a go and and enter that competition, of course. So so make sure you head to those places and get yourself involved, because it's absolutely fantastic. We're not too far away from getting qualifying underway now, though, and it's going to be a high-pressure moment for everybody. 12 drivers on the grid for another round of the ESL R1 fall season. This is round 3, the first time we've been to the Hockenheim all season long. Of course, we'll be visiting this track again a little bit later on, but we'll really get a view as to how difficult and how much everyone's been holding back so far in terms of overtaking. Is it really difficult, or have they just been keeping something in reserve?
I mean, look, this is, for me, the most important bit of this will be the qualifying. I think if you're not starting on that front row of the grid, you're not winning. And I genuinely mean, unless there's drama, you're not winning. You have to be on that front row, maybe third. But realistically, you've got to be on that front row. You've got to be there or thereabouts. And to be honest, I can see this being very much a pole position, lights to flag victory. It's kind of easy to defend around here. You know where the runs are going to come from. You know where the advantage is going to be taken. I think the only move that you can really do around here is making a very bold one around the outside of the hairpin, because most people take a defensive line and there is that drive off of the hairpin which takes the advantage. I think that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We've had 2 barnstorming finals though so far in the fall season. Maybe we're up for 3 from 3.
Yeah, I mean, the first final, in my opinion, was the best one we've seen so far in the spring season or the fall season. The second one wasn't quite the same, but it did have a lot of drama in it, including when the race was finished. So we don't mind that in terms of the show. Of course, Max Beneker did, but it's entertaining for us to see what's gone on there. And now we're set for a third final of the season. On board then with Yuri Kalstok, who's destined for pole, surely. We'll see. He's certainly destined for pole, first of all, because he's first over the line, and he will set the benchmark for everybody else to beat, but he will kick off a train of 3 Mouse drivers who will come across the line at some point across this session in what's been generally a good round for them overall.
I'm just going to read what, by the way, happened in practice, which is a 6-minute session that just came in before this, because you know I like reading those practice results. It's just a bit of banter with them, and you could also get access to that by using the Rennsport app, by the way, which obviously you'll need if you're going to take part in anything Rennsport-wise, if you get your hands on the data. So go and get the Rennsport app. Looking at some of the results from there, Dara McCormack topped the session in practice with a 35.859. But he wasn't the only driver in the 35.8s, because Moritz Lerner was, as was Yuri Toman, as was Kevin Siggy. 4 drivers in 35.8s. So who knows? Maybe we will see a 35.8 in this session.
That's slightly odd, to be honest, the fact that they've done that in practice. But I guess the pressure's off a little bit, and you've got as many laps as
you get
want.
multiple
Well, not as many as you. Yeah, you get multiple laps, not as long as you want, of course, because we've got to get this session started at some point. But yes, that's somewhat odd. But we'll see if anyone can do it this time. If you're into the 35s, surely you'll be on the front row at the very least, if not on pole. And maybe Yuri Kalstok will kick us off with a 35.8 here. Let's see. I wouldn't imagine so. It's going to be a 36.1. He will be down the back with that, I'm afraid. Not the good start that Yuri Kalstok will have wanted.
Dara McCormack. I was having a chat with him between the rounds, and we were having a discussion about whether, how he needs to approach this, and some of the risks he needs to take in qualifying. He's got a slow down penalty at T1. He has a slow down penalty. He'll be absolutely fuming, and once again making it to a final. But this time it's been a bit of a struggle bus. 2nd and 3rd in the previous finals. This time we'll be starting probably from the back. Feel bad for him, but that's racing.
Yep, and he's put himself in the wall as a result. You mentioned to me before about why didn't they put him in semi-final 2, because that momentum he builds up does tend to help him. And he is a very good endurance driver as well, of course, which maybe builds into that. But unfortunately, he's in semi-final 1, then the final, and it's not done well for him on this occasion, I'm afraid. Max Beneker's going quite well here. You'd imagine this is going to be at pole unless something gone wrong in the final sector. He's smiling as he goes over the line as well. This is going to be good. 35.9, the fastest qualifying lap we've seen all day long. And it belongs to Max Beneker of Mouse.
And I think that's a joint record, because I'm pretty sure it was a 9.32 that Joshua Rogers had set. I'll have to double check that one, but that is a mega lap time for Maximilian Beneker. I was looking at the sector thinking, is that going to be our first .8? Not quite across the line. Moritz Lerner destined here for 2nd place, maybe even an attempt at pole position. But I mean, Mouse Esports, get your screenshots ready, because it's about to be a 1-2-3 for Mouse as across the line he goes. It is another 35.9. This one's a 9.79, so just behind his teammate. But Beneker Does he look pleased or depressed in the bottom right? I don't know.
I think pleased, because why wouldn't you be? Somewhat is 35.9, the fastest qualifying lap we've seen all day long across the two semi-finals and the final as well, and that may not be beaten. Eamon Murphy will do his best to do so, and his first sector was outstanding, by the way, but he's only third here in qualifying. Not bad, but how far is he going to slip over the course of the 7 drivers who remain?
Yeah, of course, bottom right is Max Benneker, the driver that's presently on that pole position. I will say GTB Sports are mega in that first sector generally, and it's weird because it's not a setup thing. They just abuse that curve like crazy. I said the fastest driver in sector 1, generally speaking, is Yoni Turmla, of all people. But still, here's Guy Guillavera through the final sector. In a final for back-to-back finals for the Furia team. Obviously, he's been in plenty of finals in ESL R1. He comes across the line, only good enough for 4th. Bit disappointed with that, 36.1 onto the board. So it's a difficult session.
It is high pressure, high stakes, of course, and Dave Warren has been in this situation before. Let's see what he can do with this lap. I'm afraid he's a little bit wide of the mark in the middle sector there, and I'm not sure this is going to be a 35.8. He might get into 35s, but don't think he's going to be pole for Dave Warren. Over the line, it's not bad. It's a 10th away, though. He is in the 36.0s, 4th for Dave Warren so far. Not bad for the only Porsche Coanda driver who is representative in this final.
Yuri Toman a bit slow in the first sector, about a 10th off where Max Benneker was. He'll desperately want not only to get pole position, obviously, but to get onto that front row to split those Mouse drivers who currently sit first and second. They could control the race if they come across the lines in that position. Let's see what Yuri Toman will do. I think it's not going to be there. It is going to be there. It's good enough for at least second. So he does split the Mouse drivers, and you can see disappointment on Benneker's face because he knows that could be a problem during the race.
It certainly could be. Tobin, by the way, went faster than his semi-finals 2 pole lap there with that final, so he can't be mad at his lap time at all, and I don't think he was, but just outclassed by Benneker on that particular occasion, but who knows over the course of the race. Kevin Siggy makes his way towards the line now at 36.0, slams his wheel again, which surely takes a beating. 6th place for the Team Redline driver. He's now followed by his teammate Luke Bennett.
Yeah, like I say, fuming was Kevin Siggy once again. I feel really bad for his wheel. It does take a lot of abuse, and I'm not talking about from a driving perspective. I'm just taking it gets a proper hammering when he goes racing. Luke Bennett, though, new camera angle, trying to show off his guns or something, but out through the final corner he will go and up towards the line. He'll go faster than his teammate Siggy. It might be good enough to challenge up the order. Inside the top 5, bit of disappointment there, but it is still 4th with another 35.9. That one's an 8.8 onto the board.
To be honest, I think he was pretty happy with that, but once again, maybe realising he couldn't have done a lot more there, and he is the best BMW out in the field, but only 4 for Luke Bennett. Jamie Fluke, maybe a 10th or so away here. I'm afraid the middle sector's not quite where he needs it to be, but he might well be able to just make up a bit of time in the final sector. Jamie Fluke, the only representative from Apex, makes his way towards the line. He's actually 2 temps away. 9th place for Jamie Fluke. The representative time's only just ahead of Yuri Kastorp there.
And final one, it's Wish.com, Patrick Holtzman, it's Erhan Iovsky into the final sector. First one's okay, about a 10th off where he'd really want to be. Second sector's pretty decent. He'll be challenging around where Yuri Toman is, but I think he'll be behind. I think he'll be, I'm going to say, I think he might be 4th coming out through the final corner. Let's see what he does in that final sector, out towards the line. He'll come across the line and presently moves his way not even into 4th. He goes into 6th, still within a 10th of a second of pole, but not good enough.
Not quite. Here is your VRS starting grid for the final here in round 3. It's Darren McCormack bringing up the rear after that slowdown. Yuri Kastorp with the slowest of the representative times, still only 2 temps away from his teammate on pole. Jamie Fluke and Kaki Oliveira make up the second last row, with Kevin Siggy and Dave Warren just missing out on the top half. Erhan Iovsky's last lap time there got him into 6th, just behind Eamon Murphy. Then it's Luke Bennett, the first of the BMWs, and then it's an Audi 1-2-3. Moritz Lerner directly behind his teammate in 3rd, with Yuri Toman on the outside in 2nd place, and Max Benneker, who takes pole position for the final in round 3 of the ESL R1 full season. He got so close to round 2 victory at Spa 2 weeks ago. Can he go one better this time? Can he go all the way? Will he hold on after pole position here at the Hockenheim? He is going to have the perfect opportunity to take his 2nd round victory in ESL R1 history.
Yeah, like I say, absolutely fantastic qualifying lap time to have put himself on pole position, looking for his second win in ESL R1. There's Yuri Toman, who'll be starting up there on the front row with him. Do want to discuss a couple of things in that qualifying session. Obviously, Dara McCormack picking up a slowdown penalty. Can we just go over the drivers that have received slowdown penalties at T1 here? Because this is ridiculous. You've got James Baldwin, obviously yesterday, was one of them, so there's quite an impressive driver. Marcel Chinchik, your spring season champion, was one that picked one up. We've obviously had Dara McCormack in this, two-time round winner. We've got Sebastian Job, two-time round winner this season and championship leader. And of course, Joshua Rogers. Guess what? Two-time round winner. That is an insane list of drivers that have received slowdown penalties. You want to tell me they're not on the absolute limit? Yeah, they're on it.
Yeah, they are, and you have to be, because you can see the time that you can make up. We saw Eamon Murphy's first sector there. The time you can make up by going over that curb is quite phenomenal, and so you've got no choice but to take the risk, really, and it's not paid off for those really quality drivers who fell afoul of it. I think Tommy Usgaard fell afoul of it yesterday, actually, as well, didn't he? But not entirely sure. Let's see what's going to happen here. Who are you going for, Lewis? Last chance to change if you want to.
No, I'm still sticking with Benneker. You can still stick with Toman. Get out of there. You're not having my
well,
prediction.
that's quite good. It's set up quite well because we're 1 and 2 at the moment.
Exactly.
So we're set up quite well for. We have done quite well, but let's not count our chickens before they've hatched eggs, because we could well be in for a shock in a few moments' time. Still 10 laps coming up in this final, of course. It's the final of round 3 in ESL R1's full season. The lights are on now for a very long time, and I think they'll be starting the sequence in a couple of moments' time. But it will be Benneker on the front row with Yuri Toman, then Moritz Lerner, who's with Luke Bennett, of course, and then the rest of the field from that. We said that you have to be inside the top 3 to take a win here. Well, let's see if that turns out to be the case. The lights are on at Hockenheim for round 3 of the full season, and we are underway. Max Benneker gets a decent start, and it's level with Yuri Toman in towards turn 1. Moritz Lerner tucks in as well in third. Then it's Luke Bennett, Eamon Murphy to round out the top 5. Benneker gets a good run through the first turn. Where's the side-by-side coming from? It's further back with Kaiki Oliveira, who's with Kevin Siggy on the way towards turn 2. Into the braking zone they go. Eamon Murphy with a great run round the outside. He's side-by-side for third.
Yeah, that was incredibly aggressive as well from Luke Bennett, so trying to make his way through in all of this. Moritz Lerner trying to work his way through. Eamon Murphy looking for his best finish in a final in ESL R1. Look at all the chopping and changing behind us. They're going to go 3 wide. It's great for the race lead, though, for Maximilian Benneker, for Yuri Toman, for Erhan Yoski. In the middle of all of this, though, there is contact left, right and centre as they come off the hairpin. There's so much side-by-side.
Not many drivers didn't make contact there. That was absolute carnage. Side by side between Dave Warren now and Erhan Yoski on the way towards turn 8. They go. Dave Warren gets a bit of a tap from Oliveira, who gets an even bigger one from Jamie Fluke, who comes steaming in into turn 8. They all get away with it somehow, and they're still side by side. It's the mouse driver of Yuri Kazduk trying to go down the inside of the Mobil 1 curve, and he does manage it. He's too deep into the corner, is he not? Oh yes, he is. Goodness me, I've never seen someone go so wide. He's down and back to 9th again, side by side with Kevin Siggy now.
Yeah, and Siggy's being muscled down the order. Of course, he's got Jamie Fluke and Dara McCormack, who's not made any progress on the race start. Looking down the inside, Jamie Fluke, was Kevin Siggy. More a defensive move from Jamie Fluke, who was trying to do his best Moritz Lerner impression by sending it straight down the inside, nearly causing a horrific accident. Thankfully, not coming out on that occasion. Big drama on the first lap, though, but for Maximilian Benneker, it is the race-leading transit. Can we just get over, by the way, how smooth everyone's transition of the race start was? Everyone was absolutely perfect. That's how they just cut straight into single file. I've not seen that for a while.
It's almost as if we saw a computer simulation of the optimal start for everyone, because it was exactly identical for all of the front 5 or so especially, but most of the field in fact, and it didn't get really side by side until turn 2. Now we go down towards the hairpin for the second time of asking. It's a lot less carnage, but Yuri Kazduk is still causing trouble. This time he's on the inside of Kaiki Oliveira, and it's not quite worked yet. They're still side by side. This is about 8th place down the pack, and it looks like he's got it done.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of racing happening down here. Like I said, there was that contact between Kaiki Oliveira and Yuri Kazduk on the previous lap going through Mobil 1. I'm sure Race Control will take a look at that, but thankfully towards the top, there's nothing they really have to look at in all of that. It was just so tidy through the first sector from that top lot, nice and calm between them. But still, obviously, like I say, there's 10 laps of racing to deal with. There's still plenty of time for there to be some drama unfolding. I'm pretty sure we're going to get our fair share of it. Taking a look over the shoulder at race control, you can see the in-game feed there on the big monitor in the middle of the screen, along with various Discord feeds to chat with the others in race control and the sort of like the student that run ESL R1 to make sure that everything's done cleanly and they're all keeping in tight communication. It's a big job doing all of this, even though it's only 12 drivers. Trust me, there's a lot of work, generally speaking, especially if they start getting all elbows out.
To be fair, the two semi-finals tonight haven't been too bad, but you never know what's going to happen in the future and in the final of these events when there is so much on the line, and there's even monetary gain in these individual rounds now in ESL R1. Of course, it's not just about the end of the season and the major. There are additional rewards at the end of the round, which Sebastian Job has mostly swept up so far. It's going to be a different winner tonight, though, here in the ESL R1 full season. Max Benneker going to look to become the first driver to win in both the spring and fall seasons. He's leading ahead of Yuri Toman, who has a bit of a gap back to Eamon Murphy, and then it's single file on backwards from that, apart from Darren McCormack, who's down the inside of Jamie Fluke.
Yeah, big elbows out between a couple of the Mercedes-backed drivers. Like you say, for Mercedes there, we look at this, maybe this is a round to write off for the Mercedes-backed teams, considering we only have two in this final, and they're both sat in 11th and 12th. Obviously, it's not been a particularly good Hockenheim for them, a circuit where they have gone strong, where they have got a victory. And like I say, it's just a bit, like I say, a bit disappointing from them, but you don't want to lump any more of that onto their shoulders. Like I say, Darren McCormack getting that slowdown penalty in qualifying now, just looking to pick up as many points as possible. Again, to try and close in on the lead. Because at the moment, I don't know if he's going to be taking over the championship lead from Sebastian Job. He needs to score quite a lot more points.
He does need a few more points than this. He came into the round overall 26 behind Job, but then there's a lot of maths. There's three lots of maths, in fact, for us to do. And that's not going to happen, I'm afraid, with our brains. So he's got a chance, yes, but I don't think with the points he's getting right now is quite going to be possible. And maybe that was confirmed pretty much with a slowdown in qualifying. Maybe that was almost confirmed, unspoken, that he wasn't going to take quite the lead on this occasion. Of course, it's been a decent round for some of those others who are at the front, like Yuri Toman, who's going to pick up a serious amount of points from this round, and maybe he'll be closer to the championship lead than even McCormack at the end of today, but we just don't know for the moment. Everyone remains single file for now. This is lap 4 into the hairpin, of course, and still Max Benneker leads ahead of Yuri Toman, and that gap to Eamon Murphy is growing with each lap.
And do you know what I would say about drivers caring about where they are in the championship right now? I guarantee those in the top 4 don't really care. As long as they're up there, they're scoring points, they're happy with it. There's a little bit of a look at the race start, just like you say, AI simulator, a bunch of NPCs on the grid, just absolutely perfect translations of the race start. A little bit slow there from Dane Warren, that's where Kevin Tiggy got down the inside and dropped back down. This is the view into the hairpin, and it's just crazy.
That was absolutely crazy. I think it was Moritz Lerner with the biggest dive on the inside, or was it Kasdorp? It was one of the two Maus Audis that made a real big dive, but got it pulled up in time, to be fair to them, so can't be too mad at them for barrelling into everybody, but there was certainly a lot of contact down there at the hairpin. So lap 5 it is now then. We're focusing on Dane Warren here, who's right in the mid-pack at the moment, just behind Luke Bennett, in front of Erhan Yoski for the moment. There is Moritz Lerner, who's up to 4th and is sort of looking for his way through, on Eamon Murphy, who's allowing that gap in front of him to just open with each lap.
Yeah, obviously there would be questions to tyre wear and stuff. We brought this up a little bit earlier on. I think Moritz Lerner will want to get through on Eamon Murphy pretty soon. Eamon Murphy looking for his first final podium. Also, for a little bit of cheddar cheese. I think it's €250 for 3rd place, 500 for 2nd, and then £1,000 for the race lead, the race victory. Let's see if there's going to be a move from Moritz Lerner. The answer to that question is no. Can we cast our minds back to Katowice, and obviously the first ever final we had? Who was running 1st and 2nd in that race? Ewan O'Leary, do you remember?
No, but I'm going to guess it was Max Benneker and Yuri Toman.
It was Max Benneker and Yuri Toman.
I obviously know that
Benneker between
won.
the two of them.
I bet it was Toman.
It was Toman.
It's not a wild guess, is it? That's like guessing that Toman is from the Czech Republic, to be honest. Anyway, it's.
But he's not.
It's a similar situation. And to be honest, they both ended up doing well in the end of the spring season, of course, after the 8 rounds that we had there. And once again, they're doing battle here. Halfway done now, and it is a 2-horse race. I think that's fairly safe to say at this stage.
Yeah, the reason why I was bringing that up, by the way, it wasn't just to flaunt my knowledge over Ewan O'Leary on this broadcast, which I try where best I can, because actually he's got quite a good knowledge set, has Ewan. But, you know, sometimes he's got to go for it. No, the reason why I was bringing it up is because I wonder if Yuri Toman will be looking after his tyres a little bit and will go on the attack later on. He's not the most aggressive driver. That's the problem that Yuri Toman has. And that's why I'm kind of sat there. If I'm Max Benneker, I'm pretty comfortable with that, you know? Because Yuri's just not super aggressive. He can go for a move, sure, but he's never been that driver to really like risk everything for the victory. He's playing the long game all the time. That's why he was so consistent at the start of the spring season. Benneker does take some big risks, and he will take some you know, big defensive moves if he can. The only way that I think Yuri Toman beats Max Benneker here is if he gets in Benneker's head. If he tries to force a mistake out of Benneker, that's the only way he wins.
I just don't see how he's going to do that at this stage, though. He's getting closer this time, but still not close enough for a move. Yeah, I just don't see how he's going to do that at this stage, really. And I think the sort of lack of aggression that he's shown so far has kind of resulted in the fact that he hasn't won a round yet. I think this is a total unverified fact, but he might have the most points of any driver who hasn't won a round in ESL R1 regular season history anyway. He did so well at the major, but that's such an unverified fact, it's untrue. But he certainly hasn't won a round yet, and he's won a lot of points, so that's why I'm going for it. But maybe today's the day. I do agree that I'm just not sure he's going to have the aggression to match Max Benneker here, and that could be a problem for him in the final 4 laps.
Yeah, completely unverified fact, but I actually completely agree. I think that is absolutely true. Again, I've not fully updated my spreadsheet, so I have no idea. But I think you're absolutely spot on. Obviously, we know he's not won a final. We know he's been hoovering up points. He's had plenty of podiums, you know, more podiums than quite a lot of drivers on this grid. And when it comes to finals, and just overall, he's had race victories overall in you know, the quarterfinals, or as they're called this season, the knockouts, and in the finals. Sorry, in the semi-finals, but he's not ticked it off in the final. Eamon Murphy trying to tick off his podium, though. He's got to deal with Moritz Lerner, who's trying to come through. That's very aggressive on the defence.
On the grass even from Moritz Lerner as he dives down the inside in towards the hairpin. Eamon Murphy's gone way too late on the brakes and Moritz Lerner goes through. Eamon Murphy now will have to look over his shoulder and defend from Luke Bennett, who's right there in the other BMW, fighting for the highest placed BMW in the field. He won't go to the outside or the inside this time, Bennett, but Erhan Yayoski will. That was quite a dive. He can't make that work just for the moment, but Moritz Lerner is up into a podium place.
Sending it down the inside of Dane Warren like he was going down on one knee. Bam, straight, almost straight through into 6th place, but that one got rejected immediately. And Dane Warren says, "No, thank you, not today, sir. Go find someone else." And unfortunately, Yayoski will have to settle for 7th position in all of this. Moritz Lerner's not going to be able to catch up to the race team, by the way. It's 2.1 seconds unless Yuri Toman and Max Benneker start taking out chunks of each other. You're absolutely right, and I don't think they will. I think this is almost certainly a 2-horse race. Everyone else fighting over the podium. Eamon Murphy starting to crumble a little bit, and I get the feeling that in the hairpin this time, he's not going to be looking forwards to going on the attack of Moritz Lerner. He'll be looking backwards at the defence of Luke Bennett, and Bennett will be hungry to get through, obviously a round winner himself.
I think Murphy's really struggling here, and he's got to be careful he doesn't go backwards again and again and again, because there's a long train of cars behind him. He's in 4th right now, and Jamie Fluke's not that far away from him in 12th, so he's really got to be careful here. And there is the view back from him in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, as Yuri Toman gets quite close to Max Benneker as well for the lead. Outside for Yuri Toman indeed, in towards the hairpin, and the REG driver is going for the win. He can't quite do it on this occasion, and Benneker holds on, as does Murphy in that fight for 4th.
Yeah, I think birthday boy Dane Baird was too busy eating some cake rather than watching what was going on up there. Hot down, that was close from Yuri Toman, trying to get around the outside of the race lead. Not quite doing it on that occasion. I said the defence being played to perfection from Maximilian Benneker. This is where the curiosity comes in, is to, has Benneker overdone his tyres? Has Yuri Toman got enough to go on the attack? There'll be 2 more laps left to go after this one, so there's plenty more time left to go in this race. By plenty more time, I mean literally, there's about 3 and a bit minutes from now on. Let's see who's going to come out on top in round 3 of ESL R1 in the full season.
Well, this has been a tension-building race so far, but there's still 2 laps remaining at the Hockenheimring, and Jiri Toman has got every chance of taking his first round win in ESL R1. Max Benneker looking for his first of the fall season, of course. These two have done battle in the past. They'll no doubt do battle in the future, but it's the here and now that they're interested in. Max Benneker's got 4 attempts. It might well be enough to hold on the penultimate lap. Toman might need a last lap dive.
This is going to be brave. This is going to be brave. What does the driver from Czechia, really, the Czech boat, whatever you want to call it, does he have anything to go on the attack? Does he have anything to find his way through? At the moment, it seems as though Max Benneker has the answer. Will Benneker take a defensive line here? The outside line does generally end up being the slightly faster one. I don't think he has to defend from Jiri Toman this time by. And so for one more lap, the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit goes a-begging.
Oh,
whoa.
Oh, Hanya-Yoski, that was wide and very deep on the brakes as well. Dane Warren won't be pleased because Yuri Kastorp's alongside very nearly. He got all the way alongside there, but no can do on this occasion on the way towards turn 8. Toman so close again. He was nowhere near on the way into the hairpin, but he was on the way out. And look at these two now. There's just over a lap to go in the final, and it's not over. Max Benneker with his mirrors full of the RAG Audi. This is going to be a grandstand finish.
Yeah, 2 heavyweights in ESL R1 going toe-to-toe at the top. It's maybe not the 2 we were expecting. Everyone, looking at that box office fight between Sebastian Jobe, Josh Rogers, Dara McCormack. But hey, this is ESL R1. Anyone can come out on top if you play your cards right. In the moment, it's between Benneker and Toman. Benneker has a round victory to his name. It was round 1 of the spring season. Jiri Toman yet to take the top step at all. It is going to be a tough fight between the 2 of them, and they've got 1 more lap left to settle it.
Max Benneker has been so strong in the final sector and the first corner of these laps. Toman generally gets a good run out of turn 2, but is the run good enough this time? This is the important traction zone, and Max Benneker seems to have done all right there. He might well have just held off the threat for now in towards the hairpin, but let's not forget, on that last lap, Jiri Toman was a lot closer on the way in towards turn 8 than he was in towards the hairpin. What's it going to be this time? Benneker forced to defend anyway. He's not really close enough, Toman, but Max Benneker forced into defending. Is he forced into a mistake? Toman goes round the outside. He's gone too deep. A shake of the head. Is that it for Jiri Toman? Has Benneker done enough?
Yeah, I've got to say, Toman didn't look particularly pleased, but maybe that was in his own driving. I've got a feeling that I think Toman moved over to the right, into the side of Maximilian Benneker and all of that, so that one might be good, but race control will probably take a look anyway. As he comes down the inside, Eamon Murphy is going to lose the position into Luke Bennett and maybe even to Hania-Yovski as well. It's still going to be a personal best finish for Eamon Murphy. If he can hang on to this top 5, he needs to finish better than 9th to do so. But wow, it's getting dicey and all this as Jiri Kastorp's looking to come through.
Kastorp has made up so many places in this race and he's looking for another one. Can't quite do it on Dane Warren into the Mobil 1 curve, but the battle for the win looks to be settled. Max Benneker with the lead at the moment. Jiri Toman will push him all the way to the line, but it's not quite going to happen. Max Benneker will become the first driver to win in the spring and fall seasons by taking round 3 of ESL R1 here at the Hockenheimring. What a drive from the German. He holds off Jiri Toman, who's disappointed with himself, but it's Maus on top, it's Audi on top, and Max Benneker takes round 3 of ESL R1.
You see the muted celebration from the German as well. Obviously, he's taken that victory, but he's felt that feeling just a couple of weeks ago. He will not celebrate until he sees the final confirmed result, I am sure. But what a drive. I've got to say, yes, there was a little bit of contact between himself and Jiri Toman on that final lap, but I think I was just hard racing between the pair of them. I think Benneker has done absolutely nothing wrong. He's played his cards brilliantly in that race. Jiri Toman gave it a good go, but could not force a mistake out of the round 1 winner last season.
And I think he's just slightly regretting what happened in towards the hairpin as well. Is he regretting maybe not just hanging back on the way into that corner there and getting a drive out? Because, as I mentioned, on the penultimate lap, he was way closer into turn 8 for whatever reason. Don't know why he was so strong in that first sector and the middle sector as well, compared to Benneker, but he was. And maybe he's just regretting the way he approached that final lap, because I feel like on a 5 times out of 5, I feel like either of them would have won in that situation, if you see what I mean. That was a very sort of winnable situation for both of them.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, it was brilliant driving between the pair. They were on the absolute limit. And again, questions of what could have been from plenty of others, including all of our fans, by the way, because I do want to just say, maybe you're the next Maximilian Benneker, because I've got a beta key for you. Bam! Get it on. Let's go and see. Let's see what you can do in the simulator. Go and give it a go. Maybe you can be the one to set a 35 around here. Maybe you can set a 35.8 in qualifying, which is something that we've seen lacking a little bit. Obviously, we've seen a few nines, but we need to see more.
It would have got you on pole as well, so you've got to give it a go. Why not? Let's have a look at some highlights of that final then, shall we? Because there was drama right from the very start to the end. As we mentioned, it was a very even start from everybody, especially those at the front. There's the view of Erhan Yoski just cutting straight in front of Dane Warren, slowed up slightly and had Kevin Siggy to deal with in towards turn one. That just set the Catman's opinions a little bit, but this was where the real drama was. So much contact into the hairpin on lap one.
Certainly so. There was Dane Warren around the outside, a little bit of a brush between them, which actually caused a bit more of a kerfuffle on the inside. And then there was all of this, Guy Culavera, Jamie Fluke straight down the inside in the background. It's just madness going into those hairpins. This is how it is, though, on the first lap. It's always a little bit crazy, always a little bit elbows out. Dara McCormack sending one straight down the inside of Jamie Fluke, making contact with the Team Redline driver just ahead. That was Kevin Siggy, just making his way through.
Yeah, Moritz Lerner took lap after lap to try and get through on Eamon Murphy, but this was the move in the end. 2 wheels on the grass, have some of this, late on the brakes, and in the end forced Murphy to go too late. And Moritz Lerner ended up on the inside. He's gone from speaking to us and being our analyst 2 weeks ago to on the podium in the final. How things can change in ESL R1. This was the big moment, though. Yuri Toman versus Max Benneker. There's the slight bit of contact. I don't think Toman is sort of angry at Max for that particularly. I just think that he regrets the way that he took on that final lap there, really. And this is the big contact. It's almost like watching the same thing twice. It's very similar. There's the bit of contact again. Yeah. He slips a bit wide, and that's the moment where the race was lost, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, looking at it there, I mean, like Benneker's on the brakes. He doesn't have to turn in at that point. He's waiting for his turning point. He hits the apex fine. The contact between the two of them. Maybe we're trying to read into something a little bit more than it was. I kind of agree. I think Toman was more a little bit frustrated at the scenario. Maybe like, oh, God, why did I turn in there? Yeah, I've lost my opportunity. I don't think there's any bad feelings between them. It was tough racing between them, and for me, that is a very solid victory for Maximilian Benneker. Another one to move him up the order.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Just before I go, by the way, because I'm going to be off camera very soon, I've got one more key to give out. So here we are. I'll just show it up to the camera and get my handwriting expertly onto the thing. If you can decipher that, then get yourself
is it
onto
a
the
V
Epic Games
or is it
store.
a U? That's the question.
No, it's a V. It's a V. So get yourself on there. Get yourself to the Epic Games store. Try out Rensport. Why not? It's a fantastic place to be. And I hope you've enjoyed the show this evening. For now, though, we're going to throw over to Rory, who's now with the race winner, Max Benneker.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Good job on that one. And speaking of good jobs, I'm here with the ESL R1 full season round 3 winner, Maximilian Benneker. Max, congratulations, my friend. How are you feeling after that one?
Thanks, Rory. Yeah, that feels actually quite nice because Hockenheim is usually my worst track, but somehow I got lucky in turn 1 in qualifying. Messed it up in the last sector, but it didn't matter. So time was good enough. It was extremely close. So yeah, very happy with this one. So yeah, good weekend.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. I mean, Yuri Toman made you work for it at the end there, didn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of difficult. When there's someone so close behind you in the slipstream, he can save a bit more of tires, and mine were completely gone. I think I overdrove the car a little bit in the first 2 or 3 laps, and that cost me in the end. So I was trying my best to keep him behind, but it was really, really difficult. So I think I got lucky there as well, but I take it.
Absolutely. And how does it feel? Obviously we've spoken a little bit earlier about the whole Spa incident. How do you feel after that? Happy?
Yeah, it feels like a second win for me in a row now. So don't have anything to add to that. I mean, for me, that Spa incident is like self-explaining that there was nothing. So for me, it's a second win in a row. Looking forward to make it a third at Nürburgring.
Yeah, first ever hat-trick. Obviously, Sebastian was on course to do that, but then obviously everything went a little bit wrong for him. But if you could, just give us a bit of a walkthrough of the entire round from, the knockouts, how they went for you through to the semis, and then obviously the final. It'd be great to hear in your words, and I think everyone would want to hear, how you felt it went.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, the quarterfinal is usually the one where I'm the most nervous before, because it's like you don't want to mess that one up. It's like it's supposed to be the easiest race of the three you have, if everything goes as planned, right? So that's the one where I'm most nervous, and usually my quality times also are a bit worse in these conditions in the quarterfinal or in the knockout. And then afterwards in the semi and the final, it got better. So this time I improved every single time until my last lap here in the final. And then, obviously after the knockout, you go to semi. You're a bit like relieved already because you got some points, also with the P2 I had, P3 I had there. And then you go into semi, and then the only goal really is to get into the final. Kind of managed that well. My split was surprisingly not as competitive as the other one. I think with my quality time, I would have only been P4 or P5 in the second semi-final. So it's always a bit of luck involved as well there, right? And then in the final, it's just full send. I mean, either you get the off track in turn 1 at Hockenheim, or you don't. And luckily, I didn't get it. I had a good sector 1, and that kind of made the lap already such a relief when you go through there and you don't have the off track. And then from there on, at the beginning, I thought, okay, this is going quite well because the gap stayed at like 5/10 to Jiri, but didn't stay there. So I had to worry a bit more about him. But luckily, it worked out fine.
I mean, I'm just laughing because I don't know if you can see on screen, but I can see on screen, and all of us at home can see a quote from one Maximilian Benecke that reads, "I'm patiently waiting to get another round win taken away from me by race control for no reason." Do you think you've got this one in the bag, or do you think it could be robbed from you?
From all the incidents that I got judged for in the past in Spa and Monza, I think this one right now, which someone might be looking at right now, was the least of an incident. So I hope not, but who knows? Let's get the surprise later, I guess.
Okay, well, fingers crossed you do hold on to it for your sake, because 2 in a row would be great. So I mean, just a great round all in all, not just for you, but we saw Moritz as well in third place there, and we also had Yuri in the final as well. So a great round for Mouse all in all. But we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to let you go and enjoy your victory, Max. Congratulations once again. I believe you're the first driver, if the person in my ear is correct, to win in both seasons. So congratulations on that one.
Am I?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Could be. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have all the.
Just take it.
The winners.
Just take it. It's absolutely fine. Take it.
Thank you.
But congratulations again. We're going to let you enjoy your victory. Congratulations. We'll see you very, very soon for the next round. But yes, now we're going to go to, if you missed it earlier, the cool Rennsport reveal. All very exciting. I've actually got a couple more details on that, and I'm going to read them down here just so I make sure I get it absolutely correct before I get slaughtered for getting it wrong. So this is the first ever hot lap competition in Rennsport. So it's the Porsche Carrera Cup Challenge, Road to Hockenheim. It starts on September the 22nd at 2100 CEST. And basically, you're going to be setting your fastest laps in that car that we've just seen, the 911 GT3 Cup car, at the Hockenheim ring for the chance to win an exclusive, this is quite exciting, experience together with Porsche and Rennsport. So what you need to do is download the Rennsport app, get yourself a beta key as well. Also, remember, you can check the homepage if you need to, but go get the Rennsport app. That's the easiest way to do it. And yeah, best of luck. There's one right there if you can make out the handwriting. But yes, very exciting competition.
Can I just say,
you done with that?
You said, yeah. No, you said the 22nd of September at 21 CEST. That's in 12 minutes.
Is it?
Now.
We better wrap this up then pretty quickly, haven't we? Because I'm going to go and win that. I quite fancy you going.
Yeah, of course you will.
Cup car. But we have the final race. Well, results. I think we've got here. There we go. We kind of knew what they were, but Max will be pleased, won't he? But this is the final results, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got to say, that quote, by the way, was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, no, Benneker taking that victory, so well deserved, so well deserved. Like I say, in his mind, he's a two-time round winner of the season. Also, that fact was completely true. He is the only driver now to have won in both seasons. Sebastian Job never won in the spring season. So Max Benneker winning in the first round of the spring season, and then had to a long wait 10 rounds later to take a win here in round 3 of the new season. Taking it over Toman and Lerner. Luke Bennett, of course, in there. Eamon Murphy, his best result in ESL R1 in the final. Hanyu in 6th. Dane Warren, Yuri Kasdorp, Dara McCormack, disappointed, but still 9th with some decent points. 8th place for him. 8 points for him in 9th place. Then Jamie Fluke, Kevin Siggy will be bitterly disappointed because he was picked by Rory Alexander, and then Koki Oliveira rounding out the 12 drivers.
And do you want to take this one, Lewis? How this affects all the leaderboard after this round number 3?
I'm surprised that Sebastian Job holds on to his championship lead. I'll say that after a slowdown in the semi-final qualifying session, but of course 2 victories in the round 1 and round 2 still holds on to that championship lead. Dara McCormack now within 9 points of him though. After all that, could have taken over the championship lead, but not quite. Yuri Toman was just a position shy of getting right up in there as well into 2nd place, but he'll still hang on to 3rd. Max Benneker after his victory moves up into 4th. Yoski, Rogers, Chinchik, Bennett. Yeah, the rest of them you can see on screen. I'm not going to read them out like it's some sort of menu. But obviously the 24 here, the thing to really point out here, the important thing to note, is these at the moment will be the 24 drivers moving into Sweden. That's why we're taking a look at our top 24. They're the ones going through into the full season final. So very interesting to see. This will change a lot, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll take this one, Lewis. Don't you worry. R8G continue their absolute, early dominance, to be honest, in the team championship. R8G Esports, they're in first. Behind them come Williams, then Porsche Coanda, G2 Esports, and Mouse. So they're your top 5. There's a couple of teams, obviously, who struggled. So we've got FaZe Clan, Heroic, and BMW, and Mercedes. So these guys will be looking forward to the next round to try and get some of those valuable points on the board. But that was round number 4, Lewis. No, that was round number 3. We got round number 4 next. Round number 3. Let's have a quick on it. So, what did you think about the knockouts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a little calm, but the big thing was all the drama that happened, mostly courtesy of qualifying. Like I say, big teams like Mercedes being knocked out, they'll come back strong next round. It's the Nürburgring, of course. Anyone who remember round 6 from the Nürburgring last season, who took victory there? It was Mercedes, and it was a 1-2. We don't see many 1-2s in ESL R1 in the finals. That was Marko Pejic taking on a victory over James Baldwin. So I'm sure there'll be some positive mental attitude heading into that round to maybe move that Merc forward. But obviously, there's a lot of disappointments from various qualifiers from this who just maybe messed it up. There's no big off tracks in the first sector, in the first corner at the Nürburgring, but there is one going through the Michael Schumacher S. So we might see a couple of slowdowns still affecting things there.
Absolutely. So that will be exciting. So the knockouts were pretty brutal, polarising. Some teams did really, really well, had all 4 drivers through. Some had none, as we've spoken about this evening. Semi-final 1, not too much to report, not in comparison with semi-final 2, anywhere where we lost 2 of the biggest hitters out there in Josh Rogers and Sebastian Job. How much of a surprise was that?
I mean, it is, but then when you go and look back at the historical results from ESL R1, it kind of it almost shouldn't be as much of a shock as it really is. I mean, when you look at obviously the big one, Josh Rogers, you'd be like, oh my God, he's been knocked out in the semi-final. He was knocked out in the semi-final twice last season, right? So it has happened. Even Sebastian Joe has been knocked out in various points of this competition before. I actually say I'm looking at it now. He's been to all the finals. We're not going to talk about it. He wasn't so great at Gamers 8. We'll go with that, even though he was. It shouldn't be so much of a shock, but there is something about it when you see two of them do the same mistake in the same session at the same time. That's ESL R1 just complete right there and there.
And then we saw, moving on to the final as well, we saw another slowdown. Dara McCormack, another one of the heavy hitters out there, getting his slowdown and pushing him to the very back of the field that completely ruined any chances of him taking the lead in the Drivers' Championship. The first two 11th place drivers were just split by 0.2 of a second. So it was absolutely crucial to get that quali time. And of course, we saw Max Benecke become the ESL R1 full season round 3 winner. So many congratulations to him. And I think that rounds it off quite nicely, Lewis. So I just want to say thank you to yourself, thank you to Ewan, and thank you to Bruno for your time this evening. And of course, thank you to you guys. Thank you to all the drivers. Make sure before you go that you're subscribed on YouTube, that you follow on Twitch so you don't miss anything of future rounds. We're back next Thursday for the knockout rounds. I'll be streaming the watch along with Lewis and many others. But yeah, we've had a good one. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you once again, and we will see you next week for more ESL R1.